to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Get a little grip on that slider if that's what he goes with here. He did. Swing and a miss. Tag the runner. Cardinals win it 9-7. Home cooking did the trick tonight. What a game.
That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. It is 101 ESPN. The show is BK and Ferrario. Alex out today. T-Bone and Bradford in with us. Appreciate you guys joining us for the ride. T-Bone, if you're a Cardinals fan and you wanted to see what the Cardinals have to offer for other contenders across Major League Baseball, boy, was last night the night for you. That bullpen was awesome. You saw what you had in JoJo Romero and Phil Maton and Ryan Helsley. Those three combined, I think it was for 6 strikeouts over the course of 3 innings, with 0 runs allowed and only the 1 hit, and that was Ryan Helsley, who ended up shutting the door on the Padres last night. What did you take from a showcase game of sorts for the St. Louis Cardinals bullpen, T-Bone?
Oh, I took away. Boy, we are going to get a haul at the trade deadline because, man, you're right. Those guys were awesome last night. I was in attendance for that game. I had to watch the Sonny Gray experience. We'll talk about that later. But the bullpen, man, it's a shame this team doesn't have a good rotation because the offense is, I'd say, solid.
Fine.
You know, the rotation stinks, but the bullpen is elite, man. I mean, they keep running out guys, and they've done a good job. I mean, Maton, Helsley, Romero, Matz has been good for them this year, and then you add in even some of the names that they've did the whole churning through process, like Riley O'Brien, who I think has given up only 2 earned runs since getting recalled in his last back in June. His ERA is .87 in that time frame, and he's striking out the world. But now he still walks a couple guys. That is a problem for him at times. But like his stuff looks dynamic as well. It is a shame watching this team going, man, I wish they just had like a stable rotation because this bullpen is elite, but that was a showcase game for them. A lot of teams, including the Padres, who supposedly are looking for some more bullpen help, contenders are going to look at those guys and say, man, they could really help us in our bullpen in the home stretch.
Set aside what you think will happen. If you're another contending GM, who is the Cardinals reliever that you would most want to add?
JoJo. I think JoJo's the guy. I mean, he struck out 4 guys last night. He looks unhittable right now.
This is the best I've seen of JoJo Romero.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Louis. But he's the guy for me, and I'd probably put Helsley still as like a close second. But the reason JoJo's number 1 for me is he's got control left, right? All these other guys, Maton, Helsley, Matz, those are all rentals at this point. They're going to be free agents at the end of the year. Where the real value is when you can acquire a guy for this October and then the next October as well. So I think JoJo Romero is the guy that a lot of teams are going to be calling about. They'll say, hey, Mo, I want JoJo. He'll go, no. And they'll go, okay, fine, we'll take Helsley, but we really wanted JoJo Romero.
You've got to trade him, right?
JoJo?
If you're in Mo's shoes, don't you have to move him?
I would. I would do it because of what we've talked about all season long. Bullpen arms are it is a very volatile industry. I mean, look at Ryan Fernandez, right? Ryan Fernandez last year was one of the best relievers in the National League, was incredible for the St. Louis Cardinals, comes in the next year and his stuff's just not the same. Don't know really why. Something went awry. They had to send him down to AAA. We still haven't seen him because he's been working on stuff. This kind of stuff happens all the time with bullpen arms. It is very rare that you see bullpen arms have long, extended careers in Major League Baseball. There are guys that do it, but the bigger percentage of them do not, and that's why I think you should capitalize. JoJo Romero's value will never be higher for the St. Louis Cardinals. He should be a guy they are listening on for this year's trade deadline.
Hell, look at JoJo Romero last year.
Yeah.
I'll read you a couple of stats. This is not diving deep like I did yesterday on the Jordan Walker stuff.
Oh, good.
By the way,
too much.
I think the Fastlane did an awesome job talking about the statistics that I put out on Jordan Walker, the usefulness of them or the lack thereof, and why people get frustrated by it. If you missed any of that conversation, I do recommend checking out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app. I do think it's worth your time, and that's not because I think they really sold the stuff that I was putting out there. I think they just had a really good talk about analytics, the value of that stuff. But anyway, set that aside for a second. Not going too far from the analytical range. The expected ERA last year for JoJo Romero, based on the batted ball data and all that, 5.1. This year, 2.7. Expected batting average against, 271 last year. That was the bottom 10th percentile in Major League Baseball. This year, 201, top 5% in Major League Baseball. He has been one of the better relievers in baseball this year. He was one of the worst relievers in baseball last year, just by the results. So you look at that, the effectiveness of the pitcher, he's a different version of JoJo Romero this year. He's a better version of JoJo Romero. I don't know which version you're getting next year. We saw it this year. If there was any lesson from the 2025 season, it's what many of you were telling me coming into the season. BK, they're risking this with Ryan Helsley. There's no guarantee that he's healthy, and there's no guarantee that he's as effective this season as he was in previous years. Well, guess what? He hasn't been as effective. You probably would have been able to get more for him in the offseason. I'm not positive of this, but probably than you could right now. I still think it was worth the shot because they also gave themselves the out of potentially being good enough to push for the playoffs, so I don't blame them for it. I know many do. But with JoJo Romero, this is a guy that's not a closer. He is a seventh inning arm that you use primarily against lefties. That is the kind of thing that is super useful for a legit contender. It's much less useful for a team that is in the spot that the Cardinals find themselves in right now. So I would sell him. I would sell Phil Maton. I would sell Ryan Helsley. I'd be selling Steven Matz. I'd be looking to sell all these. Hey, John King, anybody want another lefty? We'll throw him into the mix if you'd like. I'm willing to sell on any of these bullpen arms that I just mentioned. That's 5 of them that are currently in your pin. That's a lot of arms to sell. I'd be willing to listen on all of them.
Well, and to your point on JoJo, and like you just don't know what he's going to potentially be if you held on to him going into next year. I mean, you just read off kind of what the expected numbers were for him last year. And those numbers for anybody not looking at the Baseball Savant page are very blue. There's a lot of blue on that page. Now, if you look at JoJo's Baseball Savant page right now, there's a lot of red, right? 69th percentile in whiff percentage, 68th percentile in strikeout percentage, 94th percentile in expected batting average that you made reference to. The reason that I bring that up is if you go back to early on in the year, because I remember looking at this prior to his Topgolf experience where he fixed everything, it looked a lot like 2024. He wasn't missing bats. The stuff, even with the eye test, didn't look as crisp. It was, okay, maybe they have kind of squeezed the lemon on this JoJo Romero experience. And maybe this is who he's going to be going into next year. But when you have a guy with this kind of control, this is the kind of guy that's going to get a really good haul at the trade deadline. And I'd also point this out. We keep talking about kind of the bullpen churn, right, of some of the guys that will kind of fill in when they have this sell-off at the deadline with their bullpen arms. Think about how they've acquired these guys, right? I always say this, and I know it's like easier said than done, and most of the time with a bullpen, it's mostly just like throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But Matz was acquired, and I believe it was either Jordan Hicks or Paul DeYoung trade with Toronto.
I think he was the DeYoung deal, if I remember correctly.
But he was not a top-end prospect. That was literally we think that guy might be a bullpen arm, so let's take a flyer on him. You look at how they were able to acquire Riley O'Brien. I believe it was a waiver claim, if I remember correctly, or like a trade with cash with like the Cincinnati Reds or Seattle Mariners. Fernandez, who I mentioned last year, that was a Rule 5 pickup for the Cardinals. Most of these guys, you can kind of find them, piece this thing together. Even JoJo. JoJo was acquired in a small deal that's been great for both teams, by the way. They gave up Emilio Sosa for him. And Sosa's become a very good bench player for the Phillies. JoJo Romero's become a very good left-hander for the St. Louis Cardinals. So, like, these kind of guys are like small moves that people don't find sexy. You can build another bullpen going into next year with tiny moves, just little fiddling of the knobs to make sure that you get a bullpen and just see if it works. It may not. You could end up having a terrible bullpen that's brutal to watch, or you could get a bunch of nice arms that you really like.
There are 51 left-handed relievers that have qualified this season in Major League Baseball. Where do you think JoJo Romero ranks among them in ERA?
Would you say 51?
51.
I will say 5th.
5th.
Yes.
Good work. Good work by you, T-Bone. He is 5th in Major League Baseball in ERA so far this year among left-handed relievers that have qualified. That's remarkable. You have to sell high, man. This is the time where you cash in on this asset. Somebody on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL, I believe it was iRock, if I remember correctly, said, don't trade JoJo Romero. Cardinals really don't have any other lefty relievers in their system that can replace him. There is some truth to that. However, can I sell you on an Andre Palante, who throws with his right hand and is super effective against lefties? I don't know if his long-term future is going to be as a starter. Now, he does not have the strikeout stuff that JoJo has. I can't sell you on that. He just doesn't. There's not going to be that case. But he's the kind of guy that could fill a role similar to where Jojo Romero is in your bullpen. If nothing else, he could be your Steven Matz replacement. And then guess what? You go find the left-handed version of Ryan Fernandez. You go find the left-handed version of Riley O'Brien. You go find the left-handed version of Chris Roycroft. Like, these guys are a dime a dozen, man. You can find them on the scrap heap. You found Phil Maton this year in spring training as a righty reliever who's striking out the world and has been, in my opinion, more effective this season, and I think this is objectively true, than Ryan Helsley. He was $2 million. $2 million bucks. And that guy is unhittable most nights. So go find the left-handed version of that, and guess what? If you can't find it, go get the right-handed version of it. And just live with the fact that you don't have that lefty in your bullpen. It is what it is. Some teams just have dynamic, great right-handed relievers. You know what I never think about when Phil Maton's in the game? He's going up against a lefty.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. The dude's just a really freaking good reliever, no matter who's going up against him. If you get dudes like that, I'm not worried so much about the matchups. JoJo helps you in that regard, especially if you're going up against a contender like the Phillies, for example, that are left-handed heavy. And that's why somebody that is currently a contender would be willing to make a big move for this. You mentioned a few of the guys that they have right now, though, in the bullpen. That's part of why I am so in favor of them selling off so many assets from their pen. Dude, think about the number of relievers right now that you're kind of interested in from the Cardinals that they have found over the last really 2 seasons. I would say Riley O'Brien, if you sold on Helsley, Maton, and Romero, he would probably be the most likely candidate right now to be closing out games starting on August 1st. Kyle Leahy has regained his form. He looks awesome lately. Andre Granillo is a guy that I really like and think deserves opportunities in high leverage situations. Gordon Graceffo, I think, has become a completely different version of himself as a bullpen arm compared to who he was as a starter. Roddery Munoz has been fine, and if you need to bring him up and he can eat some innings for you coming out of the pen, cool, I'm totally good with that. And then if you want to look at any of the other arms that are currently down in AAA, Matt Swanson, Ryan Fernandez, Chris Roycroft, you just reconstructed your pen on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually feel okay about it. It's a hell of a lot better than it has been in like 23, 21, some of these other seasons where you were actually trying to contend.
That 23 bullpen after the deadline.
And think about the flexibility that you have with that pen. For this year and beyond, they've got options. They're cheap. They're cost controlled. The Cardinals are in a pretty good spot with their bullpen, whether they decide to sell or not, and they should be selling most of these pieces that I just named.
Yeah, I really like the pieces that they have that could kind of backfill this thing. I mean, you mentioned Graceffo. He'd been good in his last couple outings back up here. Granillo looks good. I don't know. The slider doesn't look like it's got great movement, yet somehow he always misses bats with it. I think Riley O'Brien's odds are he's going to be one of these guys that we talk about as being potentially a one-hit wonder. Capitalize while you got it, though, right? Take advantage of it, and maybe he continues to just strike while the iron is hot. And then you mentioned Swanson. I would really like to see him be up here for the second half of the season to finish this thing out. Because if you look at it, I think it's gone quietly under the radar because when he has pitched, it's kind of been in games that are a little bit out of hand because they're just slowly working him into leverage situations. And if we're being honest, they're forcing him to throw 2-3 innings at a time and then just go back to their bullpen turn. But Swanson this season in 17 games has covered 26 innings, has a 3.12 ERA, and is striking out 8.3 batters per 9.
That's really good, man.
Like, his stuff has been very good. So, yeah, the bullpen, they're after the trade-off, is the bullpen a little bit worse? Yes, but it's not like 2023 when they had, like, Jacob Barnes, I think Andrew Suarez, a lefty that was in the minor league system, like a whole bunch of veterans that were just, hey, please, we don't have anybody. Just come and just save us for right now.
That's a great point. They have so many guys in their bullpen that season that were like 33, 34, 35, and you knew there's no future here. The difference with what you have this season is you have bullpen arms that will very likely be here in 2026 that you're trying to build around or at least continue to have as a part of your core of the team for 2026. And that's why somebody on the YouTube chat as well said, guys, they shouldn't punt on this year and next. It should just be 2025. I don't think this would be punting on 2026. I think you can win with the bullpen that we just mentioned and then throw in 1 or 2 veteran relievers on a cost control, like very cheap deals, similar to what you did this offseason with Phil Maton. They've shown a willingness and an ability to identify those pitchers. I think they could do the same thing this offseason if they wanted to. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys want to get involved in the show, the Air Comfort Service text line is the best place to do so. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is also available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We'll get to some of your questions coming up at 11:45 for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to those at the end of this hour. But coming up next, T-Bone, a name that we've been kind of bracing for coming up in trade conversations, has officially come up in those rumors. We'll talk about who that is, what it means for the Cardinals next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Pitch. Swing drive. Hammered toward right. Tatis on the run. That is gone. Donovan with a 3-run homer.
Alongside Tanner and Bradford, I'm Brandon Kiley. That audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest. Brendan Donovan with a homer last night. Brendan Donovan having one hell of a season. I enjoy watching Brendan Donovan play baseball. Ever since the moment that he came up, I was like, this guy's just a winning baseball player. You can see it in every aspect of his game. Gets on base at a really high clip, does all of the little things well. I feel like it's almost become a cliche with him where it's like, yeah, like he's a gamer, right? But it's true. He does everything that you could ask for. Now he's adding a little bit more pop into his game. He's up to 24 doubles and 9 homers on the season. That means he's on pace this season for 37 doubles and 15 homers. That's a hell of a leadoff hitter, man. And other teams are taking notice. John Heyman of the New York Post tweeting out earlier today. All-star infielder Brendan Donovan would interest the Yankees if he's available. Many teams would be. Astros 2, unclear how deep the Cardinals' sale will be. We have been talking about this for a while, T-Bone. If the Cardinals wanted to make a bigger move, Donovan is one of really 2 chips that allows for that. The other one is Mason Wynn, and boy, that one hurts a lot. And that's not to suggest that Brendan Donovan doesn't hurt, but Donnie is 28. Next year will be his age 29 season. He only has 2 more years left on his contract, and you have a left-handed bat that profiles to be similar to Brendan Donovan with hopefully a little bit more pop, currently coming through your system as your number 1 prospect, and in the estimation of at least one national analyst, a top 3 prospect in all of baseball, which Keith Law ranked J.J. Weatherholt as one day ago over on The Athletic. So that's the reason why you would even consider making a move like this. The other reason why is because, oh my God, could you get a haul for Brendan Donovan right now? Especially if we're talking about teams like the Yankees and maybe the Tigers and the Astros and possibly the Dodgers being interested in a player like Brendan Donovan. T-Bone, you saw this report earlier today from John Heyman. What was your reaction?
When I saw this, I thought, I don't think this is a move the Cardinals would do, but it would make some sense if they decided to pull the trigger on it. Because to me, I've always viewed these kind of pieces, and I said this yesterday on our latest episode of the Redbird Report, the Donovans, the Gormans, the Wins, these controllable young position players as, okay, we'll listen, but we have to be blown away. But odds are you save that for the offseason and use it more as, instead of selling off, you use it more as ammo to maybe go buy major league ready talent.
Quote unquote baseball trades.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. But like, if they believe that maybe they can get some really good high-level pitching prospects, or maybe there's a position player that they really like that could be like, say, in Double-A, that could maybe fit a little bit more in the timeline of the J.J. Weatherholts, the Liam Doyles, the Victor Scotts, the Mason Wynn if he's still here, Jordan Walker if he's still here. Like, those guys are in their mid to younger side of 20s. Donovan is more on the older side at 28. And like you said, you get a haul for this guy because he's got arbitration for the next 2 years going into his age 30 season. He won't be a free agent until 31, and he's not expensive. He's making $2.8 million this year. I'd say he probably gets like 5 or 6 next year, and probably 7 to 8 following that. Like, it'll be about $16 million over the next 2 years. I don't know if they're going to do it, but if they did, it would make a ton of sense because of what we're talking about. Get the haul, and you also create a spot now. You've kind of unjam this log jam up the middle a little bit, and you've created an avenue at least for the short term and potentially the long term for J.J. Weatherholt.
So one of the guys that a lot of fans are talking about recently is Spencer Jones. He's huge. He's 6'7". He's 240 pounds. He plays in the outfield. He's 24 years old. He's a former first-round draft pick by the New York Yankees. He is in AAA right now. He's not been there very long, but he has a 1,400 OPS thus far. In Double-A this season, he had an OPS nearing 1,000. He's a big-time power bat. He has 30 home runs already on the season. That's the kind of player that I would be looking to target if I'm the Cardinals making this kind of a move. I don't know if the Yankees would be willing to listen on that player, but that's the kind of prospect that I would be looking to target. I'm talking about top 100 prospect in baseball. You're not giving me multiple pieces in a move like this. I am targeting a top 3 player in your system. And if you're not willing to do that, that's totally cool. I understand it. I don't blame you for not wanting to do it. But that's the cost. And if you're the Yankees and you really want to improve, and this is the guy that you want to target because you think Eugenio Suarez has defense that is too bad for what you have, and hey man, if you've seen any of the clips that are floating around social media, that is a team that could really use a plus defender somewhere on their infield because they're lacking it right now. So if the defense worries you on Suarez, if the offense worries you on guys like Ryan McMahon and Pittsburgh's third baseman, blanking on his name right
Ke'Bryan
now.
Hayes.
Ke'Bryan Hayes or Nolan Arenado, those guys concern you with their offense. Man, there's one guy that's potentially out there that gives you the best of both worlds, and that player is Brendan Donovan. He'll fit in wherever you need him to. You can move Chisholm over to third. You can put Donovan in his natural position at second, and you get better at both positions potentially by making that kind of a move. And the way you do so is by giving us one of your top prospects. Like top 3 in your system, high upside, close to the majors. That's what I'm targeting. So if you're wondering why would the Cardinals even consider making a move like this, that's why. Because that's the kind of quality they should be targeting in any of these kinds of moves. Man, I don't want to trade Brendan Donovan. And I think there is value beyond just the back of the baseball card with him. That guy is taken over as the leader in the clubhouse. I think you lose something really meaningful and tangible by trading him away. But this team is lacking star talent. And if dealing him means you could bring something like that here, boy, I don't know if you're doing your job if you don't at least consider it. You know, it's not an easy thing to do. And so this is not one of those things where I say you have to make that move the way that I am with the bullpen. You got to move those guys. You have to. Yeah. With Donovan, I think it's a lot harder. And I wouldn't like pound the table. You have to do that. You could convince me, though. And it would not be all that hard to do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not pounding the table on you to do it. It is one of those trades that we really haven't seen Mo make. Now, to be fair, we've only seen Mo be a seller for twice in his tenure as the Cardinals president of baseball operations. But it's a puke trade, right? Like, you make that trade, you're not going to feel good when you make it potentially. And though you're getting a top-level prospect that's close to the majors, he's nothing more than a prospect at that point, right? So, like, it could be it is a complete failure of a trade. But on the other side of that, like I just gave you the downside, it's also the potential of like, man, that might be the move that becomes the accelerant for what the next core of Cardinals baseball looks like. J.J. Weatherholt, Liam Doyle, insert this huge prospect that you get in return for Brendan Donovan. Because though, yes, they must trade those guys in the bullpen, a lot of those guys aren't getting you anything that is going to be a core part of the Cardinals for the next 3 to 5 years. Maybe you get one of those in the Ryan Helsley trade, but odds are you're just getting more of the kind of lottery ticket prospects, guys that you look and go, okay, they hopefully are going to be good big leaguers, right? Nice complementary pieces. Not the potential to fit into whatever the next core could look like for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I view a player like Brendan Donovan, he's not a star. He is a nice complementary piece on a good baseball team. And he's asked to do a little bit more here because they don't have stars here. And he's done a very serviceable job for the Cardinals. These are the kind of guys that I don't extend and that I would sell higher on at the trade deadline, especially when they carry such significant value like Brendan Donovan will. And to your point, can play wherever any contending team will need him. And because he is so cheap, any contending team can afford him. Like you mentioned the Tigers. Tigers aren't a team that probably will go out and spend for big-time guys on the free agent market / the trade market. They can afford this guy. The Tigers can afford a guy like Brendan Donovan to come into their core while they're in their winning window.
I kind of liken it to a situation that you guys know I'm a Royals fan. That's the team that I grew up with back in Kansas City. And Whit Merrifield was a guy that we fell in love with in KC the way the Cardinals fans have fallen in love with Brendan Donovan. They're honestly very similar. Both can play all over the diamond. Whit Merrifield was a little bit more of a stolen base threat. He was a guy that had, consistent 30-plus stolen base seasons. But offensively, I would say Donnie's a little better. But Whit had some similarities, just They racked up the hits, right? They were consistently going to have that high average. Donovan's a better on-base guy, but again, there's more speed coming with Whit Merrifield, a little bit more of a threat on the base paths. The thing with Donnie that reminds me of Whit is they were both, relatively speaking, late bloomers. And when you have this late bloomer, the problem is, the frustrating part is, you don't have them for quite as long. You don't have their prime for quite as long. So Donnie is 28 years old right now. That was like year 2 or 3 for Whit Merrifield. And when you get to that age, you have like 2-ish years left of your prime, and then you start going on the decline. You look at it with Whit Merrifield, he started his decline by age 31. And the Royals waited it out. They gave him the extension that we're talking about with Brendan Donovan, potentially doing that. And they lacked any value once they did finally get to the place of, all right, it's time to sell on Whit Merrifield. They drained all the value out of the asset. And if you're the Cardinals, and if you're being honest with yourself, and you don't think you're going to contend in the next 2 seasons for anything meaningful, this is the kind of gut-wrenching move that you probably have to say, it might be worth it for us. You grit your teeth, you don't enjoy doing it, but you say, the asset we're getting is worth so much that it's probably the right move for us, even though it pains us to make it. That is what the Royals were unwilling to do, and it set them back. I will be very curious to see if it is a move that the Cardinals are willing to make. I do want to hear from you guys. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. It's the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature over there on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys have any thoughts on this, we'll continue this on the other side, talking about the possibility of Brendan Donovan going in a trade. I do want to make this clear. There's not a report that the Cardinals are shopping Brendan Donovan out there. There is simply a report from John Heyman which says the Yankees would be interested in Brendan Donovan, along with, quote, many other teams, including the Houston Astros. He added that the Cardinals sale, it's unclear how deep that it is going to go. We'll hear from you guys coming up on the other side, and we'll talk a little Mizzou football here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Tomorrow, Game 1, Giants and Mets. First pitch at 8:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10 p.m. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cardinals pounce on Padres pitching. Good morning, it's Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night at Busch Stadium, the St. Louis offense roared back to life, downing San Diego 9-7. Willson Contreras helping key said outburst, homering, doubling, and driving in 4 runs. Game 2 unfolds this evening as Miles Michaelis opposes Nick Pivetta. MLB wide, Seattle acquires first baseman Josh Naylor from Arizona. He's hitting .292 through 93 contests. Soccer-wise, City SC will host Minnesota United tomorrow. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys want to get your thoughts in on what we were just discussing with Brendan Donovan, his name officially on the rumor board. John Heyman saying all-star infielder Brendan Donovan would indeed interest the Yankees if he's available. Many teams would be interested in him. Of course, this is my editorializing, like, yeah, he's a really good baseball player. Astros would also be in. It's still unclear how far and how deep the Cardinals' sale would be. T-Bone, you said we got another trade on the board?
Yeah, so we've got a left-handed reliever. Now, he's a rental, go on the move. According to reports, Andy Martino is reporting that the New York Mets are acquiring Gregory Soto from the Baltimore Orioles. It looks like they are getting 2 prospects in return. It looks like they are getting their 19th overall prospect, and I think it's just a lottery ticket. I don't see the other guy listed in their top 30 according to MLB.com.
It's really early, but so far I've been a little disappointed by some of the rental prospects that are coming, or the rental prices in terms of the prospects going in return. Yesterday we saw the deal for Josh Naylor. Now that's a first baseman that hits for average and a little less on the power side of things. Those guys are always a little less valuable than you probably expect them to be, whether that's in free agency or in this case on the trade market. This, though, is a legit bullpen arm. He's got some command issues, don't get me wrong, but the strikeout stuff has been there his entire career. The results are still pretty good. The underlying numbers are definitely solid for him. This is a nice move for the Mets. I like it for them. I'm a little surprised that the price wasn't higher.
Yeah, I am too, especially because bullpen arms do typically draw higher than anything else on the market. And they got a fringe top 20 prospect in the Mets system. But, yeah, I agree with you. I like this move by the New York Mets. And if you're the Cardinals and you did trade, for example, Steven Matz, this might be kind of what you're looking at as the return, I would say, because he's a rental, left-hander, got some swing and miss. I think it'd be something like that. But I would also add this. It's going to be more if they did do the JoJo Romero, what we talked about the Open. JoJo Romero would get you probably, I'd say maybe a top 10 prospect in somebody's system, and then someone that's probably in that 10 to 15 range.
It's been interesting to see these moves coming in quickly. Like the fact that Naylor was already dealt, we're still almost a week, last night a week prior to the deadline. Now you see, I mean, not a superstar bullpen arm, but a good bullpen arm changing teams almost a week before the deadline as well. We've seen some earlier moves than I necessarily remember in recent seasons.
I feel like, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, I feel like there are more defined sellers and new defined sellers. And what I mean by that is it's not teams like, the Rockies who have been bad for a couple years, the A's who have been bad for a couple years, because at this point you've already picked that bone where there's not much there. The Diamondbacks are a new seller with legitimately really good pieces. The Baltimore Orioles are a new seller with some pretty good pieces that are going to be on the market. I think that's what's helped kind of push this forward is, we kept hearing it, it's a seller's market, it's a seller's market. I don't know. I think there's more teams that became defined sellers in the last couple of weeks to where I think it's become a lot more interesting for buyers rather than being just hamstrung to like 4 teams.
It'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals are able to get for some of their rentals. If they do decide to take this a little bit further, possibly Brendan Donovan could be in some of those discussions. John Heyman reporting today, or at least speculating, that Brendan Donovan would be somebody that is of interest for the Yankees. We did get a mic drop on this. This comes from Nick on his thoughts on the Brendan Donovan possibility of being traded at the deadline.
Yeah, BK, the Yankees would be interested in Brendan Donovan. I would be interested in Sidney Sweeney. Doesn't mean I'm going to get her. Doesn't mean they're going to get him. Him and Whit Merrifield aren't the same, BK. They only are with utility sense. Whit did rely on his speed. He led Sometimes he'd be up there in hits for tops of baseball, but definitely steals, mainly steals. And he regressed because he relied on his speed as he got older. Brendan Donovan does not. Brendan Donovan's hit tool can sustain him into his 30s way more than Witt's can. And he's not a late bloomer. He went to college for 4 years and was a quick riser in the big leagues. And he debuted in 21 and 22. He's not a late bloomer just because he's 28. He's just old because he went to college for 4 years. So I don't really get your comparison there. He's a guy that you build around. He's not a guy you get rid of. I understand why you would, because JJ's the exact same player, pretty much, in terms of like just how they look and certain profiles that they have. So JJ, of course, makes Brendan expendable, but I just don't think they should do it.
So Donovan's thing, he wasn't a guy that took forever to like get through the prospect ranks or anything like that. He's right. Donovan got hit by the COVID pandemic. That was the problem for him, because he was really good in his first season in the Cardinals system. That is dating back to 2019. He was 22 years old at the time. And he was in high A ball, which is a good place to be as a 22-year-old. He succeeded there, and the plan was for him to move up the following season, potentially all the way up to AAA. And then COVID happens. So there's no COVID season in 2020, so he ends up like kind of reverting back to high A early on in the 2021 season. Again, has success at the AA level, goes all the way up to AAA, continues to have success there, and by the end of the season, he's going to the fall league, and we're like, man, this Brendan Donovan guy is coming out of nowhere. He looks like a real player for the Cardinals, and then boom, 2022, he has the opportunity at the big league level, becomes a mainstay at the age of 25. So it is a bit different than Whit Merrifield. I'm not trying to tell you they're a one-for-one comparison. The situations were different. What I would say, though, is, man, the early portion of Whit Merrifield's career looked very similar to the early portion of Brendan Donovan's career. Brendan Donovan, through his first 4 seasons, has an OPS of 777. Whit Merrifield, through his first 4 seasons, had an OPS of 789. If you're looking at like the OPS plus, so you're adjusting for the ballparks and whatnot, Donovan's is slightly more impressive than Whit Merrifield's. And I agree. I think Donovan is a better player than Whit Merrifield. If I did not make that clear enough early on, I should do so. I think Donnie is better. I think he's a better all-around player. I think Whit Merrifield at times was a little overrated as a defender, personally. I think Donnie is very much not overrated as a defender. My point on the comparison was this. It goes quicker than you expect. That's for Whit Merrifield. That's for Brendan Donovan. That's for Nolan Arenado. Suddenly, guys fall off of a cliff, and you can't really predict when that's coming. And so with Donnie, since you have somebody coming internally with J.J. Weatherholtz, who could be similar to him at a cheaper priced and younger, that's where this gets really difficult. That's where the discussion, to me, is worth having, and that's what we're going to continue to do with Eric via the mic drop feature.
Look, Brendan Donovan is, I like to correlate it to my dynasty football team. I picked up Puka Nacua off waivers, and Donovan was a late round draft pick, so I'm kind of making a correlation here. Puka Nacua off waivers. I said, well, screw it, I'll give it a shot. I picked him up, same way as us drafting him in the 7th round. Then Puka Nacua comes out of nowhere. Brendan Donovan comes out of nowhere. I just traded Puka Nacua for a first-round draft pick. There's a correlation there. I kept Puka for his first 2 years, had a good run with him, but for me just clicking a button and getting a first-round draft pick out of it. So I say trade Donovan while his stock is high. He's an older guy. You didn't give up anything to get him. You really can give him up for, something a lot better and a lot more in return.
Here's the problem, and I respect it and I appreciate it, Eric. That first-round pick that you got for Puka Nacua, guess who you want with that first-round pick? A guy like Puka Nacua. So that's the problem with trading Brendan Donovan if you don't have J.J. Weatherholtz in your system. The moment in that scenario, if you don't have J.J., the moment that you trade Brendan Donovan, you're immediately turning and pivoting and saying, where do we find a high-on-base left-handed hitter that can play anywhere on the diamond? So there's real value in what Brendan Donovan brings to the table. And in the scenario where they don't have, the top 5 prospect in their system that they do, I don't think we're even having this conversation right now. We sure as hell would never bring up Mason Wynn's name as a potential trade candidate in that scenario. That's why this is being brought up, is because you have a clear alternative coming through your system. It's why right now you're seeing reports that the Padres may be willing to listen on Dylan Cease. It's because they have a clear need coming out of their outfield, for example, and they need to move around some money. So in order to make this stuff work for them, their chip that they do not want to sell is Dylan Cease. So there's been some speculation, hey, maybe the Cubs are a landing spot where they make a move for Seiya Suzuki. Suzuki comes back. The money's basically neutral. They're able to get a power-hitting outfielder, kind of, more DH. And in return, they give up the star pitcher that the Cubs are lacking right now. It makes sense for both teams. They find a way to make it work. That's where the Cardinals are at. They've got to rob Peter to pay Paul, and in this scenario, at least they have somebody internally that can replace what you're lacking with Brendan Donovan. Honestly, the Blues just made this move. The Blues trade Zach Bolduc. Why? Because they added Jimmy Snuggerud in April or whatever. So you're replacing a lot of what Zach Bolduc was expected to bring to the table, and in return, you get something that you were desperately lacking, which is that right-handed, potential top 4 defenseman.
Yeah, if this wasn't for J.J. Weatherholt. If J.J. Weatherholt was an outfielder, we're not talking about Brendan Donovan. We're not talking about Mason Wynn. It would be more of the focus would be like Lars Nootbaar, for example. Nootbaar would be the guy that would really be on the chopping block if he was healthy, if Weatherholt was an outfielder. Because you would just say, okay, we can replace that 1-for-1. Yeah, maybe you're looking for a guy that gets on base like Lars Nootbaar, but we think Weatherholt brings more power than what Lars Nootbaar does if we maybe even lose a little bit of that on base. So that is what the conversation is for them. And again, this is also, to me, a move that can also potentially get you something that can fit into whatever the next wave of Cardinals baseball is. And that's not to say that Brendan Donovan doesn't, but he is a little bit older. And when we talk about J.J. Weatherholt, we talk about Doyle, if you include Mason Wynn into this conversation, all those guys are in their mid to lower 20s. And Brendan Donovan is 28, and to the whole thing on his bat is going to play into his 30s. I would never bet on that because, you mentioned Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado had a very good bat, and then it fell off a cliff at 32, right? We're seeing that here in St. Louis. So once you get into the 30s, there are some guys that can make it last into their mid to late 30s. Those are really great players that can do that. Most guys don't, though. Most guys, once they get to that 30 to 32 range is when the decline hits, and then it can either come fast like it did for Nolan Arenado, or it could just be a slow regression. But I say you want to sell high on that before you get to that spot, to your point, where you don't end up where you're the Royals and you went, okay, we waited too long on Whit Merrifield.
We got this from the 314, and I'll give them the final word on this. Guys, I'm not totally against it if the return is there, but I think people sometimes ignore what the value is for a player when they're here. Getting rid of consistent 4-win players when everything else he provides is a tremendous value. Whatever return you get is most likely to be much lesser value. The prospect risk for a controlled guy they need like this is just way too high for a team that should be trying to win very soon. It's a totally fair point, and that's the risk that you're trying to balance. What level of prospect would I need to get in return to make this worth my while? I don't know. The Yankees have those kinds of prospects. They're the team that I would be targeting in the event that the Cardinals do decide, you know what? It's worth it for us to make a move like this. Coming up in 15 minutes, Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, is going to join us, talk a little hockey here on BK and Ferrario. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to those and ask us anything next here on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions. BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and answers presented by Vantage Credit Union. As a local financial partner, Vantage puts your needs first. Membership eligibility required.
Alongside Tanner and Bradford on BK, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to ask us anything right now. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us in a little more than 10 minutes. From the 417, guys, nothing else changes. The Cardinals are a 500-ish team. Not many additions to the roster. Does Mo being out get the Cardinals back to the 3 million fans number? No. The Cardinals need to be good again. That's the way that they get back to having more fans in the stands, or at least being interesting.
Yeah. It is not because Mo's here, there people aren't coming to the ballpark. There might be like a handful of people who feel that way. Same with Ollie Marmol, right? Marmol gets a lot of the hate for what's going on with the organization. It's not Ollie's fault people aren't in the stands. It comes down to winning. And I think most importantly, to your point, there's just no stars on this team, right? Like, who's the attraction to go watch at the ballpark? Because I can tell you who it was last night. It was Machado. It was Tatis. It was Jackson Merrill. It wasn't a Cardinal, right? Watching the Padres was fun. I really enjoy watching the San Diego Padres. Cardinals just don't have stars. Like, if you are a mediocre 500 team, you can kind of get away with it. And if you have a star, like you had an Albert Pujols on this team, people are coming to watch that guy. Even if you are a 500 struggling team, they are coming to see that guy. But until now, right now, you don't have that. So now it's about winning and getting those next wave of stars here in St. Louis.
And sustainable star power, right? Not just nice fleeting glimpses. We know that somebody like a Mason Wynn has a skill set. We know that Victor Scott II is exciting, but who's going to be the next tangible superstar?
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. Guys, what do you think an agent says to a player in Trey Hendrickson's position, considering he's under contract and can be franchised twice at the age of 30? It's tough, man. I think this is why I just don't see eye to eye with some of the players that are going through this specific position. And that's not to suggest that I do have empathy for their situation. It sucks that Trey Hendrickson signed a contract that was below his market value. He did so multiple times. Like, I feel for him there. But now that you are under that contract and at the age that you're at right now, there's not really a whole lot that you have leverage-wise because of the CBA that your union decided to sign. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes right now with their union. You're going to be fined $50,000 for every day that you miss of training camp. There's no way to get out of that. $50,000 every day that you miss. And then this season, like, what, you're going to miss games? All right, well, you're missing paychecks. And if you miss too many of them, now you don't accrue this season, and you end up next year just being on the exact same contract. Or you get back midway through the season, you risk injury, which is at a higher risk whenever you don't have the full ramp-up period for the regular season. You risk not performing the way that you expect to, which means that you risk not having the same contract status next year. You put yourself into the Le'Veon Bell situation. It's different because you're a defensive end as opposed to a running back, but he has very little leverage. They can still tag him the next 2 years. That's a really good starting point salary-wise. I know it doesn't have the long-term guarantees that he's looking for, but long story short, I don't know what an agent tells him that would suggest, hey, you should be holding out right now. I don't think he's handling this in the right way. I don't think it's a smart way to go about it.
Yeah, I don't get why agents would tell their players to hold out. I mean, maybe it's just you avoid the training camp and you avoid maybe a non-contact injury, because like most of these guys, yes, they get fined $50,000 at practice. Then when they end their holdout, a lot of teams will give them back some of it, because I think Chris Jones had that, right? He got fined, and then the Chiefs said, "Okay, come back, we'll forgive you."
They added, well, they didn't forgive it; they added that money into the contract.
Sure, okay.
So he just paid the money that he was fined.
So maybe that's just what they're saying. Hey, like, hopefully the team gives us back the money we're looking for when we end the holdout. Now you just avoid that non-contact injury, because otherwise, there is no real added benefit to it. And, like, this is what teams always try to do, right? They always are trying to win on the margins by winning with contract extensions or these contracts that players sign. They're looking for that net value. Like, you don't see Ronald Acuna. That contract he signed, that was well below what Ronald Acuna should have signed for. but he's not holding out. It was a great signing by the Atlanta Braves. They were able to convince him to do it. So I don't know what advice the agents would be giving the players.
We got this from the 309. Guys, on my quest to join a new NFL fandom, the Steelers, Jets, Vikings, Cowboys, Bears, and Giants have all responded with arguments to become a fan. If I had to pick from those franchises, which one should I choose? I'll read them again. Steelers, Jets, Vikings, Cowboys, Bears, or Giants. I think I would go Bears for two reasons. One, they're the most local of the teams that have been represented here. Two, you're not buying into like a bandwagon team like the Cowboys you could be argued for. The Steelers are very much a national team. The Jets, New York. I think the Bears are potentially on the upswing. I believe in their head coach. I believe in their quarterback. They're young. They're interesting. They are relatively speaking local. That would probably be the one that I would go with. If you're not going Bears, I'd say Vikings, just because, again, like upswing potential. I like their coach a lot. They've got a pretty good local community there that supports them. Those would be the two at the top of my list, T-Bone.
Yeah, so this is a 309, so I'm assuming you're not a St. Louis person that hates Chicago entirely, so I would lean Bears as well. But if you didn't like Chicago, like I can't stand Chicago, I would say Vikings would be my number one. And they're interesting, too. Like J.J. McCarthy's taken over. They've got really good weapons as well on offense. Their defense was great last year. I think it's down to those two. I would lean towards the Vikings.
Who would you go with here, Bradford, if you had to choose one of those teams that I just asked about? The Steelers, Jets, Vikings, Cowboys, Bears, or Giants?
I think I'm actually with Tanner, for that matter. Yeah, Vikings, actually.
Not the G-Man?
No.
Yeah, that would be last on the list.
Not thinking Russ is going to cook this
Somebody
year?
from the 314 said, I feel like your KC is showing here, BK. No St. Louisans could support the Bears. Is that true on the football side of things? I feel like it's a little bit different on the football side of things compared to like baseball. I think if you're from St. Louis, you could support the Bulls.
No.
The Bulls?
I hate Chicago, no.
Really?
I think Chicago's a huge rivalry for St. Louis, just in general. Like, it's not just Cubs and Blackhawks. Like, Bears, I hope they fail. Balls, we don't even have an NBA team. I don't care. I want to see them. But I'm not a fan of any Chicago sports team.
Okay, fair enough. Do you have that same hatred, Bradford, for the city of Chicago?
Well, considering I just visited a couple of months ago, absolutely not. No, I understand what you're saying, though, from where you're coming there, because of the market, obviously, and there is a difference there with the NBA team, that element involved, too, but there's a lot of venom, there's a lot of vitriol that's circulated for that Windy City. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I would just say that's a baseball and hockey thing. I don't have that same amount of energy towards them on the basketball and football side because, again, we don't have those teams. But, you know, I understand. I'm not telling anybody else how to feel. That's just my personal preference. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes.
Agrees with me.
Makes sense.
Chicago sucks. Yeah, that's right, text line. I said it.
Fair enough.
Although I'd work there.
Yeah, there you go. Coming up in 15 minutes. How would you grade the first half of the Sonny Gray contracts now that we've officially reached that point? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK. It's time to unlock your inner champion. There's one place to do so. It is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. One in O'Fallon, Missouri, one in O'Fallon, Illinois, another one in Sunset Hills, and the location that I personally go to out in town and country. Any of the 4 work great for you. They are all state-of-the-art locations. It's going to be different than going to, whether it's a hospital room or some of these other, dimly lit. You can tell this is white paint on the walls. That's not the kind of environment that you want to be in when you're trying to unlock your inner champion. It is a beautiful location over at Victory Men's Health. They've got those leather couches. You walk into the room, you feel like you're almost at home, and that's what it's going to feel like for you as you're unlocking your inner champion. That means different things for different people. Erectile dysfunction issues, they can help you out with that. Weight loss goals, low testosterone, they can check those levels for you. Or maybe you just want to learn about their vitamin infusions, their red light therapy programs, or cardiovascular testing. Check them out today. They'll help you unlock your inner champion. It's all at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com.
When you're craving bold Southern flavor, head to Super Smokers Barbecue and Cajun in Eureka. From slow-smoked brisket to spicy Cajun favorites, every bite is packed with rich, mouth-watering taste. Dine in, carry out, or let Super Smokers cater your next event.
Blues Hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with a last-minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last-Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Save by Mike McKenna. How do you like me now?
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's a Friday. That means that Alex Ferrario is not here, and Mike McKenna is. He's joining us on behalf of Macadoodles, as he does each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing on this beautiful Friday afternoon here in St. Louis?
I'm melting.
Yeah.
I left work and I'm melting. It's warm. You know what? I was actually going to get up on the roof of Macadoodles today because there's a couple things that I need to do that took place before I went out of town. And I got to tell you, my desire to hop up there in the 95 on a roof, it went way lower than I expected. And I think that's going to happen when it cools off a little bit. So not too bad, but it's the dog days of hockey here, isn't it? Looking through things, rumors, the rest, not a whole lot going on right now. We've hit that point where it feels like everybody's gone to the lake.
Yeah, you're not lying. This is around the time last year, I think, when the offer sheet started to go out for the St. Louis Blues. So I've always got my antennas up for what Doug Armstrong could still do out there, but I'm not really anticipating something like that. I did want to get your thoughts on a conversation that we had yesterday, Mike, and it's just kind of one of those, big picture-wise, where are we at with the Blues? We heard a piece from Mike Rupp over on the NHL Network. He said, hey, I think the Blues are going to finish top 3 in the Central Division next year. And our question was, okay, for that to happen, who is the Blues player that needs to take another step? We mentioned the possibility of Jimmy Snuggerud being that guy, Pavel Buchnevich being that guy. We mentioned one other, I think it was Philip Broberg, as maybe being that player. For you, Mike, for the Blues to take that next step to potentially get to top 3 in the division, who would be the player that you would circle that needs to take that next step for them?
Well, I think it might be an interesting answer. I think the Blues are positioned to not just be a good team under Jim Montgomery, not just positioned to be a team that's in the playoff hunt like they were last year, but a team that can contend and can make some waves. And it's funny because I'm usually pretty lockstep with Mike Rupp, and I do agree with him on this. But my answer for you here might surprise people. I actually think the player that with a breakout season could change the dynamic of the Blues is Joel Hofer. And I say this from the standpoint that I love Joel Hofer and Jordan Binnington as a tandem. And I think they've been phenomenal for the Blues in the last couple of years. But there were times this year with Hofer, as much as I love him and his progress and where he's going, I think there's more there. And I don't think he's going to take the crease from Jordan Binnington. I don't expect that. But, man, I'd like to see him continue to play 30 or 35 games and not about numbers, really start to control and look comfortable and confident, not just handling the puck outside his crease, but just his swagger in the net. And, he won a lot of games last year. He did get some of the easier starts. But I think if you see him start to really become a force, it's going to scare teams a little bit. So maybe it's a little bit odd answer, but I think that there's still room for growth in his game. And honestly, I've been looking at people around the NHL put out their top goalies under 25, and he hasn't been on every list. And I think that's just straight up wrong. And I think he needs to prove and will prove that he belongs on that list because he has that skill set.
Well, Mike, that's interesting because I was just thinking in my head of, okay, is there a player on the Blues that has like a fork in the road moment coming for them this year, whether it is, hey, they belong a part of the core, or, hey, maybe there is another step to their game, or maybe there isn't. Is this kind of, not that he'll be gone, but is that kind of what this year could be for Joel Hofer, a fork in the road of, okay, hey, there is more in the tank for Joel Hofer, or, okay, yeah, maybe he is more of that backup, good backup, serviceable backup in the NHL?
Well, his age definitely gives him more runway. He's still 24. This is going to be his third full season in the NHL. But this is the point where you start to look for somebody at 25 by the end of the season. Can this guy be our number one? Is he really going to grab this spot? Is he just destined to be Jordan Binnington's sidekick? Which there's no shame in that at all. I don't know if it's as much a fork in the road. I think you're looking for progress from him. It's not going to make or break a season for him or make or break a career for him because he also has the luxury now of having a contract with a couple years on it, a little bridge deal that's helpful for him. But other players that are fork in the road types, with Kyra's name being dangled out there in trade rumors, even though he's got trade protection, this still may be a fork in the road year just because Jimmy Snuggerud may force the hand on it. So that's the only one that I see up front that's really kind of at that inflection point. Jake Neighbors, I think, honestly, if what you got out of Jake Neighbors the last couple of years is all you're ever going to get out of Jake Neighbors, and he ends up being a third-line player, well, he's one of the best damn third-line players in the league for me. And I'd take that all day long. So I think Kyra's going to be the one that's in the sights on that. I think Neighbors, we're going to find out what we have. And, on D, it might be maybe Tyler Tucker makes another step. He might be the one that could surprise us on the backside.
We're talking to Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Mike, going back to the goalie side of this conversation, I do find it really interesting. You look at Jordan Binnington over the last few years. In 2023, he started 60 games. 2024 started 55 games, and that was pretty consistent with where he was a year ago, where he was at 54. Earlier in his career, though, he was a kind of a 40 to 50 starts per season kind of a player. Ideally, where do you think he would be for the upcoming season in terms of the number of games that he actually gets there out there as a starter?
Yeah, I'm good in that 50 to 55 range. Last year, he was just a little bit over that, the year before as well. The Blues have definitely given some responsibility to Joel Hofer and allowed him to grow into his role. For me, the best years for Binnington are right in that mid-range where you're playing, 2 out of every 3 games. It's no longer a 4-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio or a Grant Fuhrer 72-0 ratio. Like a lot of the listeners out there, like myself, that were Blues fans growing up, saw him start all those games in a row. If you play Binnington 50 games during the regular season and you get great work out of him and you get Joel Hofer playing some great minutes as well, that gives Jordan all the energy he'll need for the playoffs where the team needs to be. But I just like that dynamic, though, of potentially giving Hofer giving him some juice, man. Like if he earns that net, let him take it, then let Benner take it back from him. I don't think that the goalie position needs to be predetermined with the Blues.
And Mike, if the Blues are a team that is going to get somebody that takes a next step like Joel Hofer and it helps propel them into maybe the top 3 in the Central, who's the team that you think would fall out then in the Central, fall out of that top 3?
Well, I just don't see a world where you're going to lose, Colorado out of the mix on this. I think that the Central Division has gotten harder and harder, and it's one of the toughest ones in the NHL because when you've got Dallas in the mix, who is, I don't see them falling off, put it that way. Colorado, same way. I don't see Nashville recovering. I think Minnesota could be a surprise. Chicago's nowhere to be found. There's just a deep-seated part of me with Winnipeg that I just never believe in that team. So I think you're going to see the Blues, Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, maybe in that top mix. Winnipeg should be there. But even with all the turmoil and the roster change that Colorado has seen, I still think they're a better team, for me, if you get to the playoffs, than Winnipeg is. So it might be bold to say, considering Winnipeg just, put up the President's Trophy last year, but something about that club that I still just don't believe in, even though they picked up Velarde and kept him in-house. I'm not sold on them.
He's Mike McKenna. He's a former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every Friday here on BK and Ferrario, and we sincerely appreciate it when he does. He does so on behalf of the great people over at Macadoodles. Mike, what can people anticipate this weekend? It's hot as hell outside. If they want to stay inside and maybe drink something, what can they find over there at Macadoodles?
Canned cocktails poolside. How's that sound? We got plenty of them. If you're staying inside, we're still running our wine room, buy one, get one for $1 deal. It's going through the end of July. We have Buffalo Trace no longer allocated in the state of Missouri. That means come on in and buy all you want. It's out. You can take it all. We've also got a barrel pick of Buffalo Trace coming in here shortly, which we're really excited about. We will see that in the next couple days. And also, if you're out towards Union, Missouri, something exciting. Our friends at Macadoodles in Union are doing a soft opening today. So if you're down there, Franklin County, if you're past Six Flags, go see our friends at Macadoodles in Union. But if you're out here in Dardenne Prairie, come on in. I'm even going to have this weekend a couple of bottles that I will place at random times. There's going to be some E.H. Taylor small batch on the shelf. So big time allocated. It's going to be out there for the taking. We are ready for the weekend. Come see us. We'll be here open till 9 just north of Bryan and Visey Roads.
Love to see it. They always have you taken care of with all of your needs over there at Macadoodles. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. Have yourself a fantastic weekend.
Stay cool, get in a sprinkler, have some fun with the kids. I'll talk to you next week.
You bet. That's Mike McKenna joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time. Again, he joins us each and every week on behalf of Macadoodle. Saw the pricing on those Buffalo Trace bottles out there at Macadoodles. Pretty reasonable. I'd be wanting to get out there if I was one of you, and an E.H. Taylor doesn't sound so bad either.
Glass of whiskey and a cigar this weekend. That's what I'm thinking.
You are 100 years old. Whip
I'm
out
living my best life,
a paper version of the newspaper as well.
We could go buy that at the gas station.
Yeah, love to see it. Love to see it. He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Bradford Bruns, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, where the Cardinals now were the San Francisco Giants were about 5 years ago. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. But coming up next, how would you grade the first half of the Sonny Gray contract? We'll talk about it, give you our thoughts coming up here on BK and Ferrario.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
your shot to score a pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari.
Find that chance to win a pair of free passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari right now at 101ESPN.com or your 101 mobile app.
And cool off this summer at the water coaster capital of the world. Plan your family trip to Holiday World and Splash and Safari today. The splash and fun begins at holidayworld.com. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, T-Bone, yesterday was the 49th start that Sonny Gray has made since signing with the St. Louis Cardinals. In those starts, he has a 4.0 ERA. He's averaging just under 6 innings per start. And his ERA plus, which is basically the same thing as an OPS plus, it's on the scale of 100. 100's average. Anything above that is that percent above league average, is 103. In other words, he's been a slightly above league average starter since signing with the Cardinals. But his underlying stuff is really good. He's still striking out nearly 30% of the batters that he faces. That's borderline elite. His fielding independent pitching, which is something that I know Anthony Stalter mentions a lot on the fast lane, is 3.0, which again is borderline elite. But it all goes back to that ERA, which is the actual thing. Like, if I'm a fan, what I care about in terms of the results, if I'm evaluating what has already happened and not projecting what's happening moving forward, is the ERA. Dude, there are 84 pitchers that have thrown at least 200 innings since the start of last season. Sonny Gray's 55th in ERA since the start of last year. If you want to look at the FIP, which is supposed to be something that over time will normalize, and that's what should help you project forward, he's 8th behind Zach Wheeler and in front of the likes of Framber Valdez, Logan Gilbert, and Max Fried.
That's pretty good.
I don't understand what the disconnect is here. It doesn't make a lot of sense. He's had a bit of a home run issue, so maybe that explains some of it. He's worse on the road than he has been at home, although yesterday happened. T-Bone, I say all of that to ask this. How would you grade the signing? We are now a little more than halfway through that contract. Again, 49 starts thus far. What grade would you give it thus far?
I think for me, I would give it a C for the Sonny Gray signing so far, because I don't think it's been a success. Because, sure, the underlying numbers do show that, like, man, this doesn't make sense why his ERA is getting inflated and into the 4s. But we're beyond the point of looking at, like, what the under-the-hood numbers say. Now it is about what is actually happening. What is your actual ERA? And I say that to say this, it's not a failure either, because he is a very good arm, and he has been very serviceable for the St. Louis Cardinals. And the reason I put it as C is, like, you're still wanting more from Sonny Gray. He was signed to be your ace. Now, most teams, he's a number 2, but he was signed to be your ace, and he hasn't really been what I would even call a Cardinals ace because of his ERA, that it is up in the 4s. So I think it's a C. It has not been to the market value that I think that he was signed for, especially when you look at what his WAR is. It's been slightly below that, but it hasn't been an abject failure. I think it's like right there, smack dab in the middle. It is a C signing so far.
Bradford, where would you give it? What grade would you give it?
It's a tick below that for me, and I have really proceeded to bang that drum against Sonny Gray over the last couple months. You cited a few of the very important numbers in my mind. The fact that we didn't exactly expect this individual to be that prototypical ace, somebody who would consistently go 6-7 innings. But by the same token, when he has been available, when he has taken the ball outside of Busch Stadium, to me, guys, that's where the biggest chasm exists, because you can't take away, you can't just view that one start, that unbelievable performance a few weeks ago in Cleveland in a vacuum. But the fact of the matter is that this season, even including that start, here's a guy who, once again, has a 5+ ERA away from Busch Stadium. And this month in particular, when you have this stretch of make it or break it games, when you are truly entering that sell now mode, approaching the trade deadline, you're talking about an ERA that is approaching 9. You're talking about consistent, continued issues with the home run ball. And the whole body of work here, it still is lacking something that, Tanner, as you said, we're not even talking about ace standards across Major League Baseball. We're talking about being that Cardinals number one. And you've seen too many stretches for too many different points throughout the course of both seasons that really have given you reason for hesitation to give this more than a C-. I think that's being generous.
Yeah. He's such an enigma to me. Like yesterday, I watching the game, and somebody on the text line said, BK, stop with the numbers. He looked like crap last night. He didn't deserve the win. Okay. Like, we're talking about 49 starts. He was bad last night. Would anybody here argue?
No.
Okay.
I was in attendance. Trust me, it was bad.
We're all on the same page here. And as I was watching the game, in the fourth inning, I believe it was, you start to see Steven Matz warm up, and I'm like, they can't be serious with this. He was at like 60-some-odd pitches, and Steven Matz was warming up.
That's about his threshold, though.
Yeah, and it's been 3 consecutive games, or actually 4 consecutive games, where you were going to get like so little out of him. And that's part of this story is last year the same thing happened, where he was really good in the first half of the season, and then he hits his wall starting in like late July. And so that's part of the story. The road issues are part of the story. The home run balls are part of the story. He's given up 4 over the last 2 games now. I would give it a C- as well, and I hate that I'm giving it that because it almost feels a little unfair. But, man, if you're going to pay $30-some-odd million to this guy, I think you have to be reasonable with what we're talking about here. And, like, he's on the hook next year for $35 million. For the St. Louis Cardinals. And it doesn't seem like he wants to go anywhere. And if you're going to be a league average starter and they're paying you $35 million, I think you have to be better than this. Mm-hmm. Like Nolan Arenado, what would I give that trade right now? I'd say it's like a C. And it's because he's paid what he is right now. If he wasn't paid this, well, yeah, like I'll grade it on a curve. But if this is what you're going to be paid, this is how you're going to be evaluated, it's tough, but it's fair, I think. Sonny Gray has not been what he was expected to be as a St. Louis Cardinal. I think last year was a B+, B to B+. This season has been like a D for Sonny, so you grade it out over the long haul. C- feels about right to me, Simone.
Yeah, I even was a little bit tougher on him last year, too. Remember, I was one that said, man, 3.84 is just not good enough for a guy that's supposed to be your number one. Excuse me. I'm getting very emotional about the Sonny Gray situation because it's supposed to be a good signing. But, like, to your point, like you talk about just not getting the value of this deal. So far in this contract, he's made $35 million. Last year, $10 million, so it's a little easier to stomach if he has kind of I would deem a bad year. But, so $35 million, and the way that teams do this, nobody likes to hear it, and I think WAR is overrated, but it's based on WAR, right? And it varies on who you ask and what people think, but it's like $5 to $8 million is what people will pay for one WAR. So when you're at 2.7, you're asking you're talking about like at the top end, like $24 million is what you would kind of put his value at through the first 2 years. That's $11 million more than what he's getting so far on this deal. And to your point, it gets backloaded from here. And we've seen now, to your point on him kind of hitting a wall, it's probably not going to get much better from here, I wouldn't think, because his stuff has been down a little bit this year. His fastball is getting hit harder this year. The velo was a tick down, not much, but just a tick down. And if he's getting tired, if that's what the issue is he's getting worn down as the season gets longer, well, that's not something that's going to get better for a guy that's going to be 36 years old next year.
It's funny because, like, if Sonny Gray was a starter for a different team and he became available, I'd be like, the Cardinals should get that guy. Because all of the underlying stuff, all of the stuff that should be projectable, I look at it and I'm like, high strikeout rate, low walk rate, a bloated home run rate. This is a guy that's going to regress to the mean, and it's going to be really good moving forward. Like, if he was a free agent this offseason, somebody would convince themselves of the exact argument that I just made in favor of Sonny Gray. And yet, when you watch it, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel as if Sonny Gray is getting unlucky. It doesn't feel as though, like, he's going out there and, man, it's just one hit here, one hit there. People seem to be hitting him more than they had been as recently as last year, or certainly earlier this season. So somebody on Twitter, I asked this, I put this out as a poll on Twitter. What grade would you give the signing thus far? Somebody said he's an A signing for about 90% of his innings and an F for the remaining 10%. It does feel, if you remember Lance Lynn early in his career here in St. Louis, where there was the Linning, it feels very similar to that, where Sonny will reach an inning where it's just like, dude, is he ever going to get out of this?
Yeah.
Because he's given up 4 runs so far, and it feels as though he is about to hit the eject button and get up out of this game as quickly as humanly possible. It's the same issue that we have seen from Andre Palante. It's the same issue that we have seen at times with Matthew Liberatore as well. I guess that's something that surprises me a bit about Sonny Gray is that he is running into so many of those innings lately. I can't explain it. I don't understand it.
And I think that falls on that home run problem that he continues to have because, like last night, it was either the 3rd or 4th inning. The Padres have the 2 home runs in the inning. The solo shot from Tatis, and then I don't remember who hit the second one. But like that inning I was at the game, and I remember they got the first out, and I look and at my dad and went, holy crap, that's only out number 1. It feels like this inning has gone on for a really long time. But yeah, I think the other part that makes the signing frustrating, at least from my perspective, is the thing about what you were talking about, like yesterday. The bullpen's up when he's at 60 pitches. Now, part of that is, yeah, they're still kind of they are in the playoff race, so Ali is managing to try and like set his team up best. So I understood how they got to that point.
It was also hot, let's be honest. That's what happened. It was hot.
The thing of him, like, hey, I'm gassed after 70 pitches because of a rain delay, right? Like, it's about my preparation. And we said this at the time, like, you can handle that if that is your number 1. You can handle some of what I'd call the flaws of dealing with my ace just asked out after 70 pitches. You can deal with that when he is pitching well. The problem is what we're talking about is this has been a C signing so far. And now you start to add on some of the flaws of okay, it's hot, can't get as deep into games. Sure, he is on the older side, but that's not stopping some of these other older pitchers across Major League Baseball. So that just adds on to some of my frustration personally, but I still agree. I think you hold this signing at a C.
And I will say, like, some of what he's done with that stuff, if it is keeping him healthy, I mean, it's hard to disagree too much with the process because he has been healthy over the last 2 years, and that has not always been the case for Sonny Gray. He seems to know himself really well of like, hey, I've reached my limit. I have nothing left for you. It's just frustrating. I think both of these things can be true. Understandable because that is how he keeps himself healthy. Also frustrating as a fan for me to watch because, like, man, I get that this is keeping you healthy, but we need more from you. You have to give more if this team is going to be what we all wanted it to be. So over on Twitter, I posted this poll. What grade would you give the signing a little more than halfway through the contract? 5% of people gave it an A. 3% of people gave it a D. So that is the outlier of the two sides. 55% say B. And 37% gave it a C. Last thing that I wanted to get to before we get to the Cardinals, where they're at as an organization, Willson Contreras was on the opposite side of the Sonny Gray situation last night. Willson was great. And Willson has been great basically since his weird, 0-for-17 start. He's been one of the best players on the team since then. T-Bone, his OPS is well over 800 in that stretch. He, if you just pace it out, has been on pace for the full season now for more than 40 doubles, more than 20 home runs, and more than 105 RBI.
Dang.
We looked this up before the show today. The list of Cardinals to do that since 2012 is exactly 2 players. And it was in the same season. It was in 2022. It's Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Willson Contreras has a chance, if he continues at this pace, to join that list as the 3rd player to do so in basically the post-Albert Pujols era. Matt Holliday did that, I think, in 2010. Pujols did that 100 times. Scott Rowland did it a few times. Ryan Ludwig did that once. And then before that, you go back to Stan Musial. So it's a rare group that Willson Contreras is joining. Do I see this right? He's leading baseball in doubles this season? Or leading the league in doubles this season with 27 so far on the year. That's pretty unbelievable given the start that he was on. Willson Contreras is exactly who the Cardinals signed him to be. Sonny might not have lived up to the expectations, but right now, if I'm grading the deal, he hasn't been a catcher, which sucks. You signed him to be a catcher, but the hitter is really what you signed him to be. And Willson Contreras as a hitter has been everything you wanted him to be, and maybe even then a little bit more. It's been an A signing, and arguably, other than maybe Carlos Beltran because of what he meant at the time to championship caliber rosters and what he meant at the time as, hey, we just lost Albert Pujols. We need somebody to come in here and really place some of that production in the aggregate. Carlos Beltran would probably be the number 1 signing of the Mo tenure. I think Willson Contreras is probably number 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think I agree on the position player side that he's number 2, and his was even a longer-term deal than what Beltran.
Correct.
Beltran was, I think, a 2-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's been fantastic since he got here. And you're right, they mostly signed him for the bat. And I know some people don't like this signing because the fact that he's not a catcher still for the Cardinals. But the idea, I thought was the idea, then they clearly pivoted 2 months into 2023 was, hey, we're cool with having an offensive-minded catcher. Well, you have gotten a offensive-minded player for sure. I mean, I just looked this up dating back to 2023 when he joined the organization. He is second among St. Louis Cardinals among players with at least 500 plate appearances in terms of his OPS at 822. The only guy that's beating him, Ivan Herrera.
Wow. That's
the only guy. So they have gotten their money's worth on this signing for Contreras. I totally agree. I think it is one of the top moves from John Mozeliak in his whole time here with the Cardinals.
The list of Major League Baseball players with at least 27 doubles on the season. Bobby Witt Jr., he has 33. Bo Bichette has had a really good season this year, a bounce-back season for him. He has 29. And then Freddie Freeman is tied at the top of the league now with Willson Contreras. Pretty damn good season by the Cardinals' new first baseman. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. Brad Thompson joins us at 1 o'clock. But next, I think the Cardinals are where another National League team found itself a few years ago. How do they get out of it? And can the Cardinals follow a similar path? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Offensive renaissance for Redbirds. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. After stumbling through their 3-game set versus Colorado, the Cardinals had a revival in Thursday's series opener back home. St. Louis defeating San Diego 9-7 behind 3 dingers. Padres starter Yu Darvish allowed 8 of those runs over 3+ innings. More wild card jostling tonight at 6:15 p.m. Josh Naylor's Mariners debut. Meanwhile, looming, Seattle acquires him from Arizona for pitching prospects Brandon Garcia and Ashton Izzy. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
There was a really interesting piece over at The Athletic earlier today, T-Bone. It was talking about where teams find themselves, and it's by Tim Britton, who does some really great work for them. And he put in context the current situations for teams across Major League Baseball. He broke down where the Cardinals are at, and He saw them basically as all of us do right now. So the best case scenario here is what happened to the 2015 Mets. They bought big at the deadline despite similar playoff odds and rode that all the way to the National League pennant. Unfortunately, the St. Louis Cardinals do not have the same pitching, young pitching specifically, that the Mets had in 2015. Every once in a while, organizational desperation pays off. While this has been a unusually long and rough patch for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's not in that same position as the Mets team was. Instead, they look more similar to the 2018 or 2019 Giants. The Cardinals plan to take a step back competitively last offseason. They're playing roughly in line with those expectations. They have at least one major trade asset in Ryan Helsley in his walk year, and it's time to cash in on that. Agreed. What I found really interesting there, though, was the comparison to the 2018 and the 2019 Giants, T-Bone. You look back at those teams, they lacked a star. They lacked the ability to go head-to-head against some of the other top competitors in the National League, and honestly believe we stack up against that squad. Now, by 2021, the Giants had that miraculous season in which they won 107 games. It seems like every coin flip that could possibly go their way did. They platooned the hell out of their lineup, and they found a way to get to, I believe it was like the NLCS or late in the NLDS that year. And then they kind of ran into a wall, right? Like they ran into too many issues, injuries, all these different kinds of things. T-Bone, is that where the Cardinals find themselves? Because it seems to me like there are a lot of similarities between the history of these two organizations, more recent history. Both of them had so much success in the early 2010s. The Giants had a clear face of the franchise behind the plate with Buster Posey. They had like frontline starting pitching that flew through their system and provided them the ammo that they needed in their rotation. They were consistently developing these winning style players. You remember like Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, they got Hunter Pence. They just had winners all across the diamond, similar to what the Cardinals used to do. And then those guys left and got old and aged out, and it seemed as though they were lacking the guys that were necessary to fill in their place, including, by the way, a catcher for the Giants that was supposed to be the next big guy, like the next star. Wasn't it Joey Bart? It was supposed to be that guy. Just didn't work out for him in San Francisco. They kept waiting for these young players to really take form at the major league level, and it didn't work. What ended up happening for them is they hired these like young, hotshot, analytics-minded front office guys and coaches and all these different things. That failed spectacularly other than that 2021 season. And so what did they do? They returned to their roots, baby. It's time for us to hire one of our own, Buster Posey. Bring us back to the promised land, please. And now he's out here signing Willy Adames, trading for Rafael Devers, bringing in the stars. Are the Cardinals right now where the Giants were over the last, 7 years?
It's hard to deny that they aren't there because everything looks kind of similar, right? I mean, you mentioned kind of their core, how it started to age out. I don't know if Brandon Crawford was ever a star. He was a really good shortstop. Things started to decline for him. Brandon Belt started to decline
Crawford
at first
was
base.
Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, and I'll add this one. I mean, this is a one-for-one comp, I think. I don't know if he was ever at the same level as the guy I'm about to bring up. They went out and acquired Evan Longoria as their third baseman, kind of like the Cardinals went out and acquired Nolan Arenado. And Longoria was good for them. He wasn't the same player that he was in Tampa Bay.
Sound familiar?
Exactly. And then you look at their pitching, and boy, let me tell you, do you know Chris Stratton was a starter? He was a starter for one of these San Francisco Giants teams. The Chris Stratton we had here in St. Louis. So, yeah, they just didn't have the arms to go out there. And guess what? They had a really good bullpen. Again, what does that sound like here? That sounds like the St. Louis Cardinals. They just didn't have starting pitching developing, and then they aged a lot faster than they were expecting on the position player side. That very much feels like the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I don't think they're going to go through the whole swan song of, we're going to do the whole platoon thing and hope we win 105 games like Gabe Kapler did.
The Cardinals already did that, though. 2 years ago, they tried the platoon thing, and it failed, and they said, we're done.
All right, well, they had their moment, too. But they are now back towards what you're talking about, which is, hey, we got to get back. I think we'll see. I don't think they've come out and said it yet because they keep saying, well, we got to develop a superstar, even though that's not where their roots are. Their roots are going and acquiring the superstar, not developing him in-house, except for Albert Pujols. They are very much in where the Giants were coming off of their big run where they won every even year with Bruce Bochy. I think they are in very similar situations. The question is, are they going to do what the Giants tried to do right before Buster Posey under Farham Zaidi? Where they tried to sign. Remember, they were in the Shohei Ohtani. They were trying to go out and get the Wands. They were even in Juan Soto this year. Aaron Judge. Like, he had the whole Arson Judge's sign thing. Are the Cardinals going to do that, right? Like, you mentioned the Willie Adames contract. I think that's a contract the Cardinals would have done. Willie Adames got, 6 years, 170-something million? That feels like a Cardinals contract. But are you going to go trade for, like, the Rafi Devers, right? That's the move that we're talking about. Are you going to be in on an Aaron Judge market? That's Kyle Tucker this offseason. Are you going to be in on that market? That's where my hesitancy comes, because the Giants said, oh, boy, we really got to pivot towards going and getting superstars. Are the Cardinals there yet?
I don't think so, man. And that's what I find really interesting is to see, we have now, the pivot has been revealed by the Giants. We see the direction that they're heading in. And even if you don't necessarily believe in it or you don't think it's a good plan, I see what the plan is. It makes sense to me, and we'll find out whether or not it works for them. The Cardinals' plan seems to make some sense. I am not sure I fully understand what the end point is or what it eventually looks like for them. So we'll find out on that. A little bit of breaking news here in Major League Baseball. This does kind of change the conversation that we had earlier today. T-Bone, the New York Yankees, according to Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, are acquiring third baseman Ryan McMahon from the Rockies. Colorado will receive 2 prospects in return. So the New York Yankees have their third baseman. He makes a ton of sense for them if they wanted to get better defensively. And let's be honest, they needed to get a lot better defensively. Ryan McMahon is a lot like Nolan Arenado. Mm-hmm. He's a average bat, good defender. We'll see how that plays in New York. But they desperately needed to get better at third base. I think this is at least a slight improvement for them. Not a high on base guy, not a high average guy. Hits for a little bit of pop. We'll see how that plays again in New York with that outfield. He's a lefty bat, so it could play well at New York. What do you think of the move, and what do you think it means for the St. Louis Cardinals, T-Bone?
Yeah, I think the move's kind of a low swing from the New York Yankees. I think they should have been targeting bigger and better like Suarez, but again, he doesn't really help you defensively. So that's clearly what they're going for here. They were looking more for glove first. I'm not surprised they didn't target Nolan Arenado, but what it means for the Cardinals, I still think you listen on Brendan Donovan because of teams like the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers are a team that could be looking for a guy like that. Other teams will be looking for a cost control. Houston Astros are looking for a third baseman. So it just takes the Yankees out of this equation. Again, I'm not saying you must trade Brendan Donovan, but I still think there is a potential market out there for the Cardinals, but it is one team fewer now that the Yankees have acquired McMahon.
This, to me, screams, all right, Astros, all right, Cubs, what's next for you? Because the Cubs are very clearly in the third base market. My guess is one of those 2 teams, maybe Seattle, one of those 3 teams is going to be the Eugenio Suarez market. And then once that's gone, now you get to the, all right, who's going to be desperate enough to potentially try to pitch Nolan Arenado on coming to their respective teams? I still would pinpoint Houston as if Arenado's going to get moved, that's the team. That's the team that could potentially be desperate enough to say, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go put our chips into the middle. It's the final year for them with one of their top starters on their roster. They seem to be doing really well at pivoting off of some of their other outfielders, for example. They got Smith, who's been great for them so far this year after trading Kyle Tucker in the offseason. If I'm Nolan Arenado, that's the one spot that I'd potentially be willing to go if you want to win that World Series. And if I'm the Houston Astros, he's the guy personally that I would be trying to target. They don't need to go get Eugenio Suarez. They could. Sure, go add another bat. That's fine.
More the merrier.
But they've got enough in their lineup that realistically speaking, if they're healthy, they should be okay. Arenado is another kind of bat that could fit lower in their order that I would be targeting. Does suck on New York because that was a potential team that you could have really targeted something of significance from. And it was the team that if you were going to move a guy like Brendan Donovan, I could see how he fits there really well. But I think those are probably a little more off the table to me.
Yeah, I just don't expect Arenado to be moved. I don't think teams are valuing him right now, at least because typically like a name pops up, there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's like no smoke around Nolan Arenado. No, like Brendan Donovan popped up first before Nolan Arenado. Now, that's a better trade asset to both acquire and to sell off. But I would think some of these teams, if they had interest in Arenado, we would be hearing those kind of reports. We heard all about it in the offseason. I don't think he's going anywhere. I just don't think teams are valuing Arenado. I think they would rather go after the Suarez, try and really pitch you on getting Brendan Donovan. I'm drawing a blank. I think Willie Castro's his name in Minnesota, who can kind of play third base as well. He's got a little bit more offensive upside. I just don't think there's going to be a market for Arenado. Houston does make sense. But that bridge may have been burned in the offseason when he said, you're not a contender, and, well, they showed him.
One of the players going to Colorado in this deal is reportedly Griffin Herring. He is a left-handed pitcher in the Yankees organization, 6th-round pick from the 2024 class. He's been very good for them so far, still just down in high A ball, but so far in his very brief minor league career has a 1.7 ERA in 16 starts in the Yankees system. That team is just... they've been really good at pumping out the hard-throwing pitching prospects. So that's one of them that is going in return for Ryan McMahon, who had still 2 more years of control for the New York Yankees in this deal as well. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk to Brad Thompson, former Cardinals reliever. We're going to talk to him about where the Cardinals find themselves, including what he saw from the bullpen last night. But next, it's time for the junk drawer here in BK and Ferrario.
This Thursday night, the NFL Hall of Fame game is on ESPN. Lions and Chargers kick off at 7. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. The 101 Reward Center is always loaded up with awesome giveaways. And right now we have your chance to win a tailor-made golf bag. Enter to score that sleek tailor-made golf bag right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
I'm trying to imagine who this is more awkward for? The people that are at the restaurant or the people making the arrest? Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. All right, so police went to a restaurant recently to arrest somebody that had some fraudulent charges. There was a credit card that was stolen, and so they have to go there, arrest this individual, right? So they talked to somebody. They're like checking out the place, making sure we've got the right person, blah, blah, blah. They matched up the person's face with the person that they were supposed to be arresting, and they get ready to go inside, make the arrest. They talk to somebody, say, hey, we're so-and-so. We saw them a little bit earlier. Are they still here? Where are they at? And the person that they talk to says, yes, they are indeed still here. However, they are now wearing the Chuck E. Cheese costume.
Oh.
And so the police say, all right, take us to him. So they go over to the individual that is now wearing the Chuck E. Cheese costume, put him in cuffs behind his back, and perp walk him straight out of the restaurant and straight into the police car. Who do you think that's more awkward for? The cop that is now having to walk Mr. Chuck E. Cheese out of this restaurant, or the people at the restaurant, including the children that are, under the age of 6 primarily, that are watching their beloved Chuck E. Cheese get perp walked through the restaurant?
Oh, man, that is a great question. I think I'm going to go with the cop because the cop's the one that has to go in there. Like, I'm looking at this picture now, and his face is I can't believe this is actually what's going on.
This is what my life has become.
This is my Thursday.
Yeah. I think, like, Chuck E. Cheese is up there. Can you imagine going to Disney World? The most magical place on earth. Mickey Mouse, you're in line. You're going to be, your kid is finally going to be able to meet Mickey Mouse. Yeah. And as you're getting ready to walk up, a police officer walks up. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm going to have to walk through here. And they say, sir, I'm sorry, but could you please put your hands behind your back? You're under arrest for credit card fraud.
Yeah, I think
and you see Mickey Mouse walking out of the most magical place on earth. You got the castle behind him. Oh my God. They have this, the head is still on Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. Like, they didn't undress him. They didn't say, please take the hat off for us. No. Full garb walking out of the place.
I'd have to go with the police officer in this instance.
And he feels bad because he sees all the little kids around him and just feels like he's doing his job. And he feels bad that, boy, I am like breaking these kids up. They're here for a birthday party for Chuck E. Cheese.
Somebody says, as a former cast member, that would never happen. Maybe not. My assumption is in that scenario, there's probably some kind of an agreement between like Disney and the police department of, hey, we're going to go ahead and take this guy out. You can do this somewhere else. They didn't do that here.
I'm surprised that didn't happen here. They walked into Chuck E. Cheese
and said, you, sir, are under arrest. And this wasn't like a violent crime or something. And not a great thing. Shouldn't be out there committing credit card theft or fraud. But I would think this is a scenario where you could say, hey, let's go to the back. We need to talk. Take your Chuck E. Cheese costume off, please. We're going to go ahead and take you to the car now. You're under arrest.
You may be able to explain this one away. Hey, last year the animatronic band went away. Don't ask me how I know that. Chuck E. Cheese himself takes the fall.
When was the last time you went to Chuck E. Cheese, Bradford?
Oh, dear heavens. It's been well over 10 years.
Okay, I wasn't sure if like that happened recently.
No, we did not do the field trip thing. No, we did not.
That was Bradford 3 months ago at Chuck E. Cheese.
The band's over.
He's going through he's in the ball pit, just out there rocking kids in the face. Bradford using alliteration. Just rocking kids left and right.
Chuck E. Cheese getting chippy.
Coming up next, Brad Thompson joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $200-300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? back. If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code OCEAN25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code OCEAN25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code OCEAN25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're hanging with Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN.
Hanging breaking ball from Brad Thompson. And boy, does he get a swing on it. Lift and separate and see you later.
Hanging with BT is sponsored by St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend. He's the Cardinals analyst for FanDuel Sports Midwest. He's Brad Thompson joining us here on the show. BT, what's good, man? How you doing today?
Well, what's good is power. I think we should hit 3-run home runs all the time. I feel like that is a good recipe for success. But I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really well. That was a fun one last night. It was a fun back-and-forth game. If you like pitching, maybe not so much for the first 5 or so innings, but after that, it was pretty fun. Hitting-wise, though, man, can we talk a little bit about Willson Contreras, BT? He is now tied for the National League lead in doubles on the season. He is on pace this season for more than 40 doubles, more than 20 homers, more than 95 RBI. He would be the first Cardinal to do so since 22. He would be one of only 3 Cardinals to do so since 2011. How would you describe the season that we are seeing out of Willson Contreras this year?
Well, first, a couple of things, right? We've spent a lot of time talking about what he's been able to do in his transition to first base, and it has been fantastic. You look at him, and you would never know that he is learning to play the position. So you got to credit him with that. Like, that has been really, really good. And then not having the rigors of getting beat up behind the plate, well, I think you're seeing that pay some dividends as well, right? It is so difficult when you're back there, you're getting beat up all the time. Pedro Pajes can probably tell you a little bit about that, to be as offensively productive as a guy like Contreras can be. So I think that you're seeing him healthy, you're seeing him free and easy, and you're just seeing him drive the baseball. It's been loud noises off of his bat all the time. What I like about him, he's not a one-trick pony. It's not just a, hey, I'm pulling, that's all I'm going to do. No, he drives the ball to the off gap with authority. He does. He hits breaking balls well. He dominates the bottom of the strike zone. Like, he just has a really good idea of what he's trying to attack up there, and he's having a lot of success. It's huge to have your veterans. We all know this. Look, if you're going to allocate big money to players, you need big production out of said players. Contreras is on that long-term contract. You needed that production out of him, and you're getting it.
Well, BT, the guy that struggled last night for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Man, let's talk about the bullpen, T-Bone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, BT, that
maybe
bullpen's pretty good.
Darvish.
Yeah, that's true. I could have been asking about you, Darvish. We don't know.
Sorry, I assumed.
But BT, the bullpen for the Cardinals last night, again, very good for them. I heard cha-ching signs going off in my head for what they're going to get for Ryan Helsley, Phil Maton, Steven Matz, those guys. But also, how about the work of Riley O'Brien, those guys that they've got in the back end as well that could fill this bullpen if they sell off at the deadline?
Look, I appreciate your pivot, and we'll get back to Sonny Gray for sure, because obviously need to talk about that. No, the right now, when you're looking at the bullpen, and again, like we have a view of maybe what the Cardinals could do at the trade deadline. I'm sure everybody's look at it is different. Not still sure exactly what the front office's view of it, but yeah, the phones have got to be ringing. And you know, Ryan Helsley talked about it the other day. The way that he's looking at it is like 90% probably gone, 10% might stay. If you're looking for a veteran reliever that can spin it, change of pace, Phil Maton, sign me up all day. Tell you another guy that can bring you some big time value on the trade market. Not that I'd like to let him go, but the way that he's been throwing the ball, you want to get something for Jojo Romero. I think that you could get some good assets for him, right? Awesome outing by Jojo, inning and 2/3, struck out 4, that tied a career high for him as far as strikeouts go. And Riley O'Brien has been a guy only a third of an inning, scattered a hit and a walk during that, had that strikeout for his third. But he has grown into a guy that they trust. He has always been that StatCast darling, right? Everybody knew that he threw, 97, 98, 100 miles an hour, had a wipeout slider, but it just seemed like when the lights got on and that third deck was in a stadium that he changed a little bit. Well, I think that you're starting to see him grow in his confidence, him trusting the fact that he blows 100 and nothing that he throws is straight, and he's going after people. It has been really good to see that. And then you couple that in with that kind of Memphis shuttle, and trust me, it sucks to be on that bad boy, but it's important to keep a bullpen healthy. You had different guys come up, whether it be Granillo, Matt Swanson, who looked really good last time out. These guys, Graceffo, have done a really nice job of piecing it together in the bullpen.
Yeah, and BT, if I'm in John Mozeliak / Chaim Bloom's shoes, those guys give me confidence that this thing isn't going to fall apart completely if I do sell on Ryan Helsley, Phil Maton, potentially Jojo Romero, Steven Matz. That's a lot to sell from one bullpen, and in most seasons recently for the Cardinals, I'd be like, oh boy, this could get ugly quick if you decide to sell on potentially 4 or 5 bullpen arms. This year, I mean, it's not going to be as good as it is right now because those guys are really good relievers, but you at least have capable replacements in the event that you go out there and sell off some of these bullpen arms.
No, you're right, BK. And at the end of the day, what matters when you're selling off pieces is the return. The return is what matters. So it doesn't have to be guys that necessarily slot right in and help you right this second, but you better be helping your ball club in the long run. That's the idea of making a trade, right? So that's kind of what it comes down to. But you're right. It does give you, and we threw out a bunch of names. I doubt all those names will be on the move. Who knows if any of those names are going to be on the move? That's why the next handful of days are going to be really interesting as we move closer and closer to this deadline. But yeah, depth is the most important thing when you have a club. We know this: the 26-man roster is not going to win you a championship. You're going to utilize the 40 and then some to be able to get through it. So some of that depth has been tested from a pitching standpoint. Some guys have gotten some opportunities this year that maybe you didn't think they were going to get, and some of them have ran with it. So if you do make some moves, which right now you're sitting what is it, 2.5 games or 2 games out of a wild card, you are in a position where you're close, but there are a lot of teams in that mix, right? So guys have stepped up in that pen. You love that, and it does, to your point, provide a little flexibility.
All right, BT, let's get to it.
You Darvish last night.
So
boy, you did not look great.
2 weeks ago, Sonny Gray had a 3.5 ERA. That has ballooned to 4.5 after the last 2 outings in which he has given up 22 hits and 14 earned runs. Sonny, since the start of last season, ranks 55th out of the 84 starters that have thrown at least 200 innings in ERA. If you look under the radar at all, BT, his stuff's still good, strikeout rate's still high, walk rate's still low. Like, everything suggests, like, man, this should be going better in terms of the results that they're getting out of Sonny Gray. And yet, here we are. He has a 4 ERA since he was signed last season. BT, how would you evaluate, A, the signing overall and where you're at with it, but B, What's gone wrong with Sonny Gray over the last couple of weeks?
Well, first of all, with the signing, I still love the signing overall. First of all, it's not my money. So 3 years, $75 million for a guy. I'm not paying him. And I'm happy for him. He's making the money. He earned it to that point. I loved, actually, that the Cardinals didn't get saddled to like a 5-6 year deal for somebody at the time. And I won't put words into your mouth. I think a lot of people in our industry were happy with that deal, right? The fact that they got a high-end starter.
I was very happy about it.
Well, I'll put them in your mouth. So we do that, and look, what I see this year, the highs are high and the lows are low. I mean, you look at some of the outings that have blown up the ERA. Gave up 5 and 6 against the Angels. Gave up 4 and 4 1/3 against the Mets. Gave up 7 and 3 2/3 against the Phillies. Gave up 6 in 4 1/3 against Milwaukee. Like the big ones have been big, and obviously 14 runs in your last 8 1/3 over the last 2 starts. That's going to be an ERA increaser. I don't know if there's not like a why of what happened that I can put a finger on. Eyeball test tells you why. Like he's missing. He's missing over the middle of the plate, and he's been getting punished for it the last couple of outings. Now, he's the one who's the veteran and been in the league a long time that has to figure out hey, why is this happening and how do I fix it? I know he mentioned after that Arizona start that, maybe mentally he wasn't where he needs to be. Look, for me, a veteran guy, and you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. Can't have that, though. Like, you got to be where you need to be. And even when you're off, you got to be able to dial in and compete, and he competes his butt off, but got to be, mentally where you need to be. And I have no reason to believe that in 5 days it's not going to be that case, because you look at prior to that, he's been solid. He had, 4 out of the 5 in June for him were great. He had a good July. You have that outlier against the Phillies. Like, the highs have been high, the lows have been low. And I'm sure nobody's more frustrated about it than he is. But that's the guy that you look like he was, and that was my key to the game last night, which, boy, got blown up quickly, was be the guy, right? Like, he had to be the guy in that game. Fortunately, the offense was the guy and was able to springboard things. But he's the guy that you need as the stopper. So I'm sure he's maddened by the last couple of days. I don't know how. I mean, he keeps everything pretty close to the vest. I don't know how he's feeling physically at this time of the year. But the stuff the last couple of games have not had that same sharpness to it.
BT, one thing that was tweeted out earlier today, I don't know if I'd call it much of a report that he's in the rumor mill, came from John Heyman saying that Brendan Donovan would be of interest to the Yankees. And, of course, the Yankees just acquired Ryan McMahon. And he also said if he's available, many teams would have interest in him, including the Astros. Do you think the Cardinals would listen on some of their middle infield pieces at this year's trade deadline, or does that feel more of like something that they might explore when we get to the offseason?
Man, well, it's a really good question. I think that right now, and let me say this first, personally, I don't want to see Donnie go anywhere. Absolutely love him. I think that not only what he brings from an all-star performer, but behind the scenes from a leadership role, which I think that you can never have too much of that, and he brings the bulk of it. I think he means a ton to this organization. But that being said, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not listening on all your players. So they have there are comps, right? However, they're quantifying what a return, what they would want it to look like. They know what they would want a return for a guy like Donovan to look like. If you get that and then some at this deadline, it's something that I feel like you have to think about. And it's not just about Donovan. It's about any player that you could throw out there. You have to think about the long term. And that's why I'm glad that I don't have a big office. First of all, I'm not smart enough to do that. Don't need an office. That's a lot to clean. And you probably have somebody that does that. Mo probably doesn't clean his own office. Chances are there's a whole staff that goes in there and does that. But it's so many things to be able to quantify, and I do think that leadership value, that is part of it. But yeah, hell yeah, if I'm the Yankees or I'm the Astros or I'm any team competing, I want Donnie. Donnie is a winning player, but I'm sure that the camp that says sell all say, well, he's in his late 20s. You got J.J. Weatherholt right behind him. You could fill the spot. Like, you can make a case either way. It comes down to, does the return make sense? And again, I want Donnie here. I want him wearing the birds on the back that for a long, long time. He would be a guy, if he's around, that I'd think about locking up. I think that his skill set plays pretty well for the next handful of years. But I feel like you have to think about everything. How have you guys broken it down when you look at Donnie?
Basically the exact same thing, BT. Like, this is not to. I would tell you if we disagreed on it. We view it very similarly. I think Brendan Donovan is the exact kind of player that I would want in my organization. If I'm the Yankees, like, I would have explored this prior to making the deal for McMahon. I think that's a smart thing to do. He's a really good baseball player, and if you're on the cusp of contention, he can play anywhere. And I think that's why he has so much value, because if I'm a team that needs a corner outfielder, well, we can put Donnie out there. If I need a third baseman, Donnie can play there. If I need a second baseman, he can play there. Hell, if you need a first baseman, Donnie would be willing to do that for you, and he'd probably do it pretty damn well. And you get the high on base, decent slug, high average guy, and a great locker room guy to boot. And he's got the club control. So he has a ton of value. And if you're the Cardinals with J.J. Weatherholtz coming through the system, like, I think it makes sense to at least listen to see what is out there. But you'd have to get a ton in return to make this worth your while. So I don't think you just sell him to sell. But yeah, listen, find out how other teams value your players, and then assess from there what makes sense for you.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It is a fine line, too. And right now is such a hard part of the season when you're a club like the Cardinals that have so many names up in the air and so many variables. It's really easy to say, hey, just go be mentally tough and go out there and go play the game, go do your job. Man, I'm sure these guys are swimming. A lot of these guys, Ryan Helsley's name is getting thrown around left and right. All these bullpen pieces, like, it's not just them, too. It's their families, it's friends. It's, hey, I heard a rumor. Hey, I saw this. It's a stressful time. Everybody's on hug watch. So, look, the trade deadline is super exciting from the fan standpoint, and for anybody that gets moved. Chances are, if you're getting traded from a club, you got a chance to go to a contender. Like, that ends up being a great thing for a lot of guys. But it's also a really stressful time, and one that, from a player standpoint, you're kind of happy when it's over.
All right, BT. Last question that I wanted to get from you. We talked about Jordan Walker a little bit over the last few days. He's been playing really well, at least offensively, since he's come back off of the injured list. Since his return, he's batting .333, OPS over .850. And it's not just the results. Like, the process, to me, looks better. I'm curious what you've seen. You've got more of a trained eye for this stuff. What are you seeing from Walker, and have you noticed something that has tangibly changed in his approach since his return from the injured list?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a great thing that you bring up, talking about the way that he is going about it, his approach at the plate. We've spent a lot of this year talking about the swing decisions, not just the swing, because the swing needed some revamping, I feel like. And he's done a little bit of that. You see the upper body is a little bit more closed for Jordan Walker throughout his swing, which is really benefiting him instead of flying off the baseball. But what he's done a better job of here of late, BK, is not swinging at the pitch that's away from him, especially the one that is spinning. He has an eye of where he wants the ball. I always try to think about it as anybody that's played like MLB The Show, right? You got your little zones in there. You're seeing that pitch coming in. You know where you want it. Like, he's got his zones set. He's middle up on the inner half, and that's where he wants the baseball. And if it's not there early, he's doing a better job of not offering at the other pitches. When there's two strikes, you got to cover. You got to figure it out. But I think that his swing decisions that go along with some of the swing changes for him are paying off. And I don't care what you do for a living or what you're trying to accomplish. When you make small changes in your life and then you end up seeing results, you want to make more changes. And you want to keep digging into them, and you want to continue to get better and better. And the hope is for Jordan Walker, that's exactly what you're seeing, that he's putting in the work. He has had, him and Brant Brown have been working on this for a long time, of trying to clean up the swing and trying to not be as susceptible to the breaking ball away, because it had murdered him most of the year. Well, he's laying off those things. He's recognizing it. And to your point, that approach has been way better, and he's benefiting from it.
Sounds a lot like what they've done with, like, Alec Burleson made some of these changes as well. Yeah. Some of the other guys on the team have gone through a little bit of an approach shift under the new hitting regime. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, BT. We're hoping like hell that he becomes the player that we all wanted him to be. And that plate discipline is ultimately what's been the biggest issue for him. He swings the hell out of the baseball bat. Like when he hits it really hard. It's just a matter of getting the right pitch to hit. And that was the issue early on for Burleson as well.
No, you're right, and it should be expected. You look at the Cardinals right now; they have, I believe, at least as of a couple of days ago, there's roster moves every day. They have the second youngest offensive club, right? A position player club. You're going to have variables. Yeah, you're going to have ups and downs. Like that part of it is going to happen. So the key is what adjustments can you make along the way. Alec Burleson has been, and he still can be, a really good bad ball hitter. He doesn't have to hit just strikes. He can barrel up a little bit of everything, but when he's doing his damage, he's doing it within the strike zone. And then you're seeing him drive the ball the other way and take what's given. I love that little inside-out double. You had Machado shifted up the line. I said, I'll take that on a curveball, by the way, which he hung back, kept his hands back, and somehow was able to hit it that way. I just love seeing some of the adjustments. You know, credit the individuals for making it. Credit the staff for pouring in the time. And you want to me, down the stretch, regardless of how things go at the trade deadline, guys, you should never see – and I don't care what the standings look like in September with 2 weeks left. You should never see an unmotivated Cardinal team because there's not enough guys that have proven it at this level. Like, there are so many guys that are still fighting and clawing for jobs that it should be a flat-out competition all of the rest of the way for at-bats, for playing time, and for next year.
BT, it's great to catch up, man. Enjoy the series this weekend. Should be a fun one. Cardinals versus the Padres. Padres quietly fighting for their playoff lives right now, and one of the teams that's chasing them doesn't feel this way necessarily, but are the St. Louis Cardinals. So should be a fun weekend out there at Busch despite it being 1,000 degrees. So enjoy yourself, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, nipping at the heels. Should be a great weekend. Look, Cardinal victory tonight in Florida. Sorry about it. Have a night.
Enjoy yourself, BT. Take it easy, buddy.
See you guys.
You got it. That's BT joining us here on BK and Ferrario, as he does each and every Friday here on the show. Walker, to me, is just one of the more interesting and compelling storylines down the stretch. I mentioned all of the nerdy numbers yesterday, the attack angle.
Oh, don't do it again,
the swing path tilts, the ideal attack, like all that stuff, yes.
You're going to get Bradford excited over here.
I know.
Too late.
And listen, I agree with what the Fast Lane said. It's a bunch of mumbo-jumbo that I would say 95% of baseball fans don't understand and don't really care about. They want to see Jordan Walker succeed. I should see Jordan Walker go to the plate and get hits. And if he does that, I know he's playing well. The reason that I look at it, the reason that I find it interesting, and you can disagree with it all you want, that's totally fair, is just because I want to know the why. Why is he seemingly having more success right now? Because we've seen Walker go through stints where he's guessing and he gets the results, and nothing has actually changed other than, hey, that ball went into play and it dropped for a hit. And he hits it so hard that a lot of the time when he drops it in for a hit, it could potentially go for extra bases. So, like, I've seen that version of Walker before, and honestly, I'm not all that interested in falling for it again. So I want to find out, is there actually a real change here? Is he laying off that slider low and away, which anecdotally feels like the answer has been yes lately. He seems to be just saying, I'm not swinging at anything on the outer half. Cool, eliminate it. And if that means striking out on a pitcher's pitch where he hits the outside corner, cool, dude, live with that. Live to fight another day to get a better pitch the next time that you come up. So that's better plate discipline, better pitch selection. And then when he does swing at stuff, like the swing path seems to be better than it's been. And again, that goes back to when you're swinging at better pitches, yeah, the path is going to make more sense. Because instead of swinging at a pitch that you thought was going to be a fastball and it ends up on the outer half because it's a slider low and away and hitting it straight into the dirt, you're going to do a little more damage with this fastball that's in. So it's encouraging. I hope it is something that continues. Fingers crossed it is real this time around. Coming up next, we want to hear from you. The Mic Drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We've had many of you reach out via the Scott Lee Heating Mic Drop feature over on the 101 ESPN app, giving your thoughts on what the Cardinals should do at the deadline, especially as it pertains to Brendan Donovan. We'll hear from you next year on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Basically, what I'd have to say is that our entire pitching staff has been a C. Basically, they're just average, maybe a little less than average, but they've certainly not been stellar.
That was Janet on the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app.
I agree with Janet.
They've been average?
Not stellar. Whatever you want to call it.
53 and 51, fourth place in the NL Central, roughly a 500 record. I would say they are the definition of average, T-Bone.
Yeah.
They, as of earlier this week, had 0 players that were qualified with an OPS over 800. Today, they have exactly 0 players over 800. That is a little bit of juke in the stats. They have 2 players like right at 100, right, or 800 right now with Burleson and Contreras. You could throw Donovan into the mix after last night as well. But yeah, that and then their starting rotation has like basically 0 starters with a below 4 ERA on the season as well. Yeah, they're very average.
Our bullpen's good.
Do want to hear from you guys on the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. How are you viewing this year's deadline, especially as it pertains to some of the bigger question marks? Because I think most people have agreed at this point in time, Helsley should be sold, Matz should be sold, Maton should be sold. differing opinions to a degree on JoJo Romero, but I would say majority opinion, hey, get what you can while you can on a lefty reliever with one more year of control, especially if it's a good return. The real questions are on the position player side of things. What do you do with those guys? And Brendan Donovan is at or near the top of that list. Let's hear from Travis. What does he think the Cardinals should do at this year's deadline?
If you're going to trade Donovan, you've got to shoot for the moon. Like a top 100 prospect and another fringe top 100 prospect. He's your best player. I mean, I could easily see him hitting until he's very decently till he's 34 years old. I mean, it would make me sick to know that we traded Donovan and we still have Gorman, Nootbaar, whatever, any other player you can think of that deserves it still on the roster. I mean, Gorman's already got the body of a 34-year-old. What are we doing? Trade these guys, make them the priority to trade before Donovan. I mean, if you trade Donovan, what are you building, really?
JJ Weatherholt. And it's not an either or Donnie versus Gorman because they're not the same value, right? That's like T-Bone. I have a 2009 Honda Accord with 100,000 miles on it. My wife has a 2019 Nissan Murano with 70,000 miles on it. Her car is more valuable than mine. If we decided, hey, we want to get a new car for our family, right? We could trade my car in and get a bucket of balls for it. Or we could trade her car in, get a lot more value for it, and then pay less on the next car, right? That's our choice. The car that is less valuable for us is mine. It's also the easier one to get rid of because my wife drives an SUV. I drive a regular car. Hers has a little bit more utility in it. That's kind of what the Cardinals are talking about here. I mean, you could trade Nolan Gorman if you want to. The value of him is very low. Jordan Walker, value is very low right now. You could trade Nolan Arenado. You eat all of the money, get very little in return. But the value of a guy like Brendan Donovan is why you trade him. Because what that caller just said, Travis, is right. You could potentially get a top 100 prospect and more. Mm-hmm. And if you can get that in return and replace him either later this year or next year, certainly with J.J. Weatherholt, that is something that you have to consider if you're in Mo's shoes. So that's the reason this is even a discussion. If he didn't have crazy value, nobody would be suggesting that the Cardinals should potentially trade him.
Yeah, it's not just about making sure you have the roster spot for J.J. Weatherholt. It's about how do you want to create that roster spot and how much value do you want to try and target in that return? Because, yeah, you can trade Nolan Gorman. You can kind of find another spot for Brendan Donovan on the roster because of his flexibility, right? You could, in theory, have Brendan Donovan be the Swiss Army knife again, that role that he was last year, 2 years ago, where he just kind of bounces around the infield when guys need days off, even going out to the outfield as well. But, again, if you trade Nolan Gorman, you're getting maybe a lottery ticket, reliever prospect potentially. If you're doing the Donovan one, it is both for the roster spot while also saying, hey, this might help accelerate the timeline for us as we kind of go through this transition towards more of the younger side, towards J.J. Weatherholt and that group that's coming with him. That is more to hopefully try and get that top 100 prospect and a guy that's a fringe there. If you have those two guys and they actually pan out like you expect, kind of like you expect J.J. Weatherholt to pan out, now you're talking about a team that could really have something with their roster there.
Somebody on the text line bring this up, and we'll get up over to the mic drop feature here in just a moment, hearing from Brendan from the 636. Guys, it doesn't have to be Donovan versus Weatherholt either. You could have both of them on the team. Totally. And I think that's probably the most likely scenario, is next year you have both Brendan Donovan and J.J. Weatherholt on this roster. Donovan is here, continuing to produce. Weatherholt is here, starting his early ascent of his major league career. Agreed. You don't have to make that decision. Having Weatherholt allows you to have the opportunity to make that decision, and then you can continue to build from there. I mentioned earlier today the Yankees, when they were still in contention for somebody like a Brendan Donovan, they've got a big power bat that's 6'7", 250 pounds, plays in the outfield. He's not Aaron Judge, but he's 50%, let's say, of one of the best hitters of this generation. Yeah. That's even too much, but he looks like Aaron Judge, and you're hoping he hits good power hitter that hits 250 at the major league level, right? That's the kind of return that you'd be hoping for. And now you've got a power hitting right-handed outfielder and J.J. Weatherholt on your roster. it just changes the complexion of your roster a little bit. All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Brendan.
Donovan, his trade value is never going to be higher than it is this very day. You almost have to trade him, especially if you can get a haul for him. And if you want to do this trade deadline correctly, it would make all the sense in the world for John Mozeliak to pretty much hand over the keys to Chaim Bloom right now. Give Chaim Bloom the opportunity to reset the team going into the offseason, and even possibly would give him a chance to go out, give free agents, do whatever he needs to do during the offseason, and even get the Cardinals competing as early as next year.
Here's a question for you, T-Bone. If you're Chaim Bloom, do you want Mo to make this move at the deadline so you don't have to do it in the offseason? Like, you're behind the scenes. You're not the face of this move. If you want to make this move and you say, we probably should trade Brendan Donovan. It's a move that, if you're in Chaim Bloom's shoes, you feel is the best thing for your team long term. Is that a move that you want under Mo's tenure instead of being the first move that you make as the president of baseball operations?
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes, because it's very much like it's very much what you would want to do, like when ownership groups take over new teams, right? They typically say, like the Nationals, they were for sale. They couldn't get the extension with Juan Soto. The new ownership group that was negotiating said, hey, go out there and sign, or go out there and trade Juan Soto so we don't have to be the one that does it when we first take over. That makes all the sense in the world. Now, he's not at the same level of this, but it's also what set, remember, Chaim Bloom on such bad footing in Boston.
Yeah.
His
It's
first
different.
one, I said it is different, but that's what happened there was Brendan Donovan is a fan favorite here in St. Louis. He's not a superstar like Mookie Betts, but you're going to start off with your first move being, hey, my name's Chaim. It's what my name tag says. My first move as Pobo is I'm going to trade your favorite player, Brendan Donovan. Yeah, that will turn off a couple of fans. So, yeah, my answer would be if you believe in doing this move and you are exploring a trade of Brendan Donovan, if I'm Chaim Bloom, I want Mo to be the guy that technically has his name on this trade.
I'm in full agreement with you there. We're going to continue some of this, hear more from you guys. Mike Drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We're talking Brendan Donovan and the possibility of him being dealt at this year's deadline, but let's expand the conversation as well. What do you think the Cardinals should do at this year's deadline? How far are you willing to go here? We'll talk about that, hear more from you guys next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000. Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards face tall order tonight. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. One evening after throttling Yu Darvish, St. Louis will battle perhaps the NL sharpest righty going. San Diego's Nick Pivetta opposing Miles Michaelis at 6:15. Pivetta is 10-2 over 20 starts. However, Mike Schultz's Padres have dropped 3 consecutive affairs, including yesterday's 9-7 verdict downtown. AAA Memphis blanks Gwinnett again 5-zip. Matt Koperniak homering twice as J.J. Weatherholt receiving some rest. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Talking about the Cardinals and their decisions at the trade deadline. We're less than a week away, T-Bone. This time next week, we will be breaking down the moves that were made by the St. Louis Cardinals at the trade deadline. By the way, we're going to have a Redbird Report live here on 101 ESPN next Thursday night. That will begin at 6 o'clock, breaking down whatever it is that the Cardinals do. The Redbird Report, the latest podcast, can be found at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. But this upcoming Thursday, the day of the trade deadline. That deadline is at 5 o'clock. The Fast Lane will be live as it takes place. We will be on the air for the Redbird Report starting at 6. So be sure to tune in for that if that's something that you are interested in. T-Bone, do want to hear from some of the listeners, though, via the mic drop feature over on the 101 ESPN app. We've been talking trade deadline, specifically Donnie, but we can expand the conversation to what listeners think the Cardinals should do as we get closer to the deadline. We begin with Ed.
Probably a pretty good idea. He's kind of had the trajectory of like a Whit Merrifield did with the Royals. Came up later, older, but became good. And then Whit went to Toronto, still did okay. But this is your perfect time to trade him. You trade an old player with value so you can keep the young players with runway. Get a little worse, that's fine. You're looking towards the future. Love you, bye.
Oh, love you too, Ed.
Bye.
Oh, man, he's the best.
I liked to believe that Ed, just based on the name and nothing else, was a guy sitting at home in front of his television watching us on YouTube. The TV is on the ground. He's sitting in an Adirondack chair in his living room, which has 0 pictures, of course, in the room. And he's got a 6-pack of Budweiser, Bud Diesel, in front of him as he's watching us on the YouTube stream. After hearing him, I don't think that's how I picture my Ed any longer.
No.
I don't think that's Ed at all. I do agree with the take, though. Like, if there is a real trade of value out there to make for Brendan Donovan or for other guys that are in a similar position, I think you've got to consider it if you're the Cardinals.
Yeah, the other thing, and Ed mentioned it, and I don't remember who the last mic drop was prior to Ed, but
that was Brendan.
Okay, so Ed and Brendan have both brought up his value's never going to be higher. That is probably true. That is more than likely the case for Brendan Donovan because he has 2 more years of control. He is having another career year, I would say. He's flirting with hitting 300. His value probably will not be any higher. And like for the rest of the season, he's making probably like $500,000.
I was about to say, just contractually, his value is not going to be higher than it is today at this year's deadline.
Yeah, so that's what also adds to this conversation. And that's not to say his value will be bad next year if you're talking about this again at the trade deadline or even in the offseason, but because you can have him for 3 October runs and potentially pay him probably anywhere to like $15 to $18 million in that time frame, that's why his value is at its peak and why it makes it so much more interesting for the Cardinals in their decision-making.
All right, let's continue on the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. This is not me, I promise. Let's hear from Brandon.
To go along with the Sonny Gray conversation, why is it that we don't give any blame to the pitching coach? It's hard to point to a success story since Maddox left and Molina left. There's not really anybody that has gone up and above and really excelled. And even like Liberatore, who's putting together season, it seems like all of a sudden the game plan is just off. I felt like the Sonny Gray game plan was off last night. They knew what was coming all night long.
I would push back. You're not going to like it, Brandon. I do appreciate the mic drop, but I disagree completely, wholeheartedly. I think they have maximized the pitchers that they have right now on this year's roster. I think this is a representation of who the pitchers are and not a representation of who your pitching coach is. And part of that is because, dude, I've seen him fix relievers left and right. I've seen him take Matthew Liberatore from what he was when he first got here to what he is today, which is a pretty damn good starter. I've seen him take Andre Palante, who had no business being a starter because he could not get right-handed hitters out, and say, this is exactly what you need to work out. And if you do it at the minor league level, I think you can become a starter. And credit to the player, Andre Palante went down to AAA, worked on that sinker, got back up to the major league level, and turned himself into, for, close to a year, a pretty solid, respectable major league starter. So I would highly disagree with that. I think they got Jordan Hicks back on track after I said they have to DFA his ass because that guy is worthless and had been bad at the major league level for 2.5 years. I think your pitching coach is just fine. I think he has been an asset, not a liability. And I would say the problem with the rotation right now is on the players. Sometimes you just don't have the dudes, and they don't have the dudes.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dusty's been a good asset for the St. Louis Cardinals. Hicks was the one that I first thought of because that's the one that they ended up getting a good reliever in return, and what I believe was Swanson in return in that deal. And we talked about him earlier. He's been a good piece for them.
Swanson was the DeYoung deal, but yeah.
Oh, okay. They got Kloffenstein and the others. So, but again, I still believe Dusty has done a very good job here. And look, they have squeezed as much as they can from this lemon that is this rotation. Now he gets a chance to work with Michael McGreevy. And if we're being honest, you said it's on the players. Some guys just aren't fixable, right? I don't know if Eric Fetty was a fix. The Cardinals tried. They tried everything they could, and then finally they just ran out of the runway and said, okay, you know what? We can't keep doing this. We have to move on from him. Jojo Romero, now the story was he fixed his hips at Topgolf, but Dusty was also working with him, right? Let's not just pretend Jojo Romero fixed everything while swinging a golf club. He took that to the bullpen with Dusty Blake. They worked through some things, and now Jojo Romero is a guy that we're talking about that would have serious value at the trade deadline because he's been so good for 3 months now.
Yeah, text line said Hicks was 3 years ago. He was 2 years ago, and I think they've had somebody that you can point to that's been a fix every year so far since Dusty has taken over, at least one person. So I'll give him credit. If you disagree with that, that's totally fair. That's your prerogative, but that's my personal opinion on the matter. All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Bryant.
Fetty, he's DFA'd, but Helsley is gone, Matz is gone, Maton is gone. Okay, those guys are gone. I would be open to trading JoJo Romero as well. You got to look at maybe Nolan Gorman. Could be a trade chip. And I would definitely listen to offers on Brendan Donovan. If you can get like a young, cost-controlled number 2, number 3 starter, I would be all for it. Trade while his value is high. See if anyone will take Arenado. I doubt it.
Same.
But you need to open up the infield, and you need to open up some more starting pitchers, because if you only have McGreevy and Liberatore and Sonny Gray for next year, that's not enough. You need someone that can definitely provide you with some innings and some good pitching.
I agree with the idea of trading Donnie for a number 2 or number 1 or number 2 starter. I think what we got to remember is you're not getting that guy that's fully formed right now.
Yeah.
You're not trading Brendan Donovan for Dylan Cease. You're not trading Brendan Donovan for Max Fried. You're not trading Brendan Donovan for Logan Gilbert. You're trading him for a guy that you think can become those players in 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So keep that in mind. You're probably trading Donnie for a prospect, not somebody that's already at the major league level. But otherwise, agree with most of what Brian had to say. All right, let's hear on the next one, the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Jimmy.
I've always been the guy that's, no, we're not going to be sellers. We don't do that. It's not in our DNA as Cardinals Nation. But after listening and listening and listening and watching and watching and watching J.J. Weatherholt, I don't think you're wrong. It's crazy to say we're going to sit here and have the conversation of, hey, what can we get for Brendan Donovan? But you're not wrong. You've got a player who has the most value as far as position players go on the team. He's got more value than anybody. You're looking at JJ being here soon, and what do? What if you don't trade Donovan now? what do you do next year? What do you do when Donovan is a couple years older and his value is diminished, and you're looking at, well, we probably should have traded him. We're not winning the World Series this year. Let's face it. We're not winning the World Series next year. Let's face it. Trade Donovan. I mean, I didn't think those words would ever come out of my mouth, but trade him.
I think Jimmy has gone through a very similar progression to me. Hearing him, he's like, man, I don't want to do this. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe it makes sense. Actually, you should do it. Actually, you kind of have to do it.
Because we stink.
I feel like I've kind of gone on a similar path to Jimmy over the course of this full regular season. It's just, man, they've shown us who they are. They're a 500 team. They were able to, for a really long time, outperform those expectations. But I think this is who they are. They're 2 games above 500. Their run differential is 2 runs below. They're 2 runs into the negative. They're a -2 on the season. This is who they are. And the talent is basically that. It's not a one-year fix. You've got to be able to do everything you can to throw assets into this rotation. T-Bone, you mentioned it yesterday on the Redbird Report. And it was a good one. You said, like you look around the National League, it's the story of the season. Look at the teams that have the pitching. Those teams are the ones that are contending right now. The Brewers, the Mets, the Padres, they have pitching. That's what's elevating them. You look at the teams that are not meeting the expectations that we had for them this season. The Braves, the Dodgers are good, don't get me wrong, but they're not the historically great team that we expected. Why? Because of the lack of pitching. And the Cardinals fit into that category where they just don't have the pitching right now. They're also lacking a superstar on the position player side of things. I'm not diminishing that, but the role that they're really lacking, because their offense is not all that dissimilar from what we've seen this year from the Brewers, what they're really lacking is the pitching. They need to go out and find a way to acquire it.
Yeah, and Donovan might be the guy that you use to go out and do that, right? Maybe Helsley gets you something that is there, but I mean, Jimmy's right. Brendan Donovan is, I would argue, Wynn probably has more value when you're talking about a value standpoint. It's Wynn and Donovan. Those are the 2 position players that will bring in the most in terms of what the value would be in return if you sold them off right now at this year's trade deadline because of the control, because they are good players. It's interesting to see how far the Cardinals are willing to go, and what makes it so much more fascinating is because of the change in the front office, right? They keep saying they want the flexibility for Hein Bloom. Well, does that mean you have to wait till the offseason when he's technically the Pubbo, or are they actually going to willing to be able to have him making some of these tough decisions this year at the trade deadline? That's what's going to make this deadline so fascinating, which happens in less than a week now.
He's T-Bone. That's Bradford on BK. Coming up next, we'll give you an update on some of the trades that have been made over the last 24 hours as we're now less than a week away from the deadline. Also start to preview what we could see this weekend at Busch Stadium. Quietly, the Padres are kind of fighting for their playoff lives right now, and the Cardinals are in an intriguing spot over the next week as they have 7 games head-to-head against the Padres to kind of determine whether or not this Padres team is actually going to end up in the playoffs. We're going to talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Tomorrow, Game 1, Giants and Mets. First pitch at 8:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10 p.m. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
Casino Amphitheater. Find all the ticket details and find that chance to score free tickets for El Monstero and Blue Oyster Cult right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app, super easy to use. It is also free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. You can always check us out on YouTube after the show today, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Every single show is cataloged for you guys over there. So if you'd like to go back and listen to some of our previous interviews, we had Brad Thompson and Mike McKenna on the show earlier today, or if you just want to watch some of the segments from the show, you can do that over there. You can always check out any of our podcasts there as well. We had a new Redbird report, which posted yesterday, breaking down the Cardinals sell-off. The Last Minute Blues podcast did a show recently. You can see the spread zone over there. It's all up for you guys right now at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We'll have plenty of conversations as we go along here over the next week about the Cardinals. Trade deadline plans, T-Bone. They are back in action this weekend. 3 more games head-to-head against the San Diego Padres. Michaelis, Libby, and McGreevy getting the starts this weekend. The 2 announced starters for the Padres are Pivetta and Vazquez over the next couple of days. Interesting spot for San Diego. They're quietly only a game and a half, 2 games up in some scenarios on the wild card right now. 1 game up over the San Francisco Giants. They need to make the playoffs this year, dude. They are in a really dire situation of, if they miss, I don't know what happens in San Diego. There's real urgency there. What are you anticipating at Busch Stadium this weekend against the Padres?
Well, I still think the Padres, because they have the pitching, are going to be able to kind of calm this storm. Because if the Cardinals take 3 or 4 for them, or even best case scenario, we're somehow able to pull off a 4-game sweep, first off, whoa, this becomes more interesting for Mo. But second, there would be real panic. I think they're the better of those 3 teams that are jostling for that right now. Between them, the Giants, and the Reds, I think they are the better team. I think at some point their bats will start to wake up, and Preller, that guy's a maniac when it comes to trades. He's going to go and try and upgrade this team however he can. But you're right. If they miss the playoffs, they are suddenly in a very interesting spot, because ever since their owner passed away 2 years ago, I think it was, or a season and a half ago, they've started to slowly pull the reins back quietly on what they're willing to spend. And that's where you've seen Preller, where he's he almost feels like he's operating how Mo had to operate last year, where it's kind of money in, money out. Because if it wasn't money in, money out, Dylan Cease's name is not on the trade market.
And to be fair, they're money in, money out situations for little different reasons.
Yes.
They're up against the CBT. They're in a really interesting spot. Their schedule moving forward over the next month: 3 against the Mets, 3 against the Cardinals, 3 at Arizona, not an easy place to play, 3 versus Boston, 7 against San Francisco, and 6 against the Dodgers, and that leads into a 3-game series on the road at Seattle. Dude, brutal schedule for the San Diego Padres. They need to get improvements as we get closer to the trade deadline. Really big spot for them. Few trades have gone down. Yesterday, Josh Naylor was traded to the Seattle Mariners. Today, Ryan McMahon, the third baseman from the Rockies with club control, was traded to the New York Yankees. So take them off of your list of potential landing spots for Nolan Arenado, even if that feels unlikely to begin with. And the pitching trade from earlier today, Gregory Soto, the reliever from the Baltimore Orioles, has been sent to the New York Mets. Those are your updates on the trades that have officially gone down. We'll certainly have some more to break down for you guys on Monday when we return here on BK and Ferrario. Fantastic job today by Bradford Bruns, who was filling in as Alex Ferrario is out on yet another Friday here on BK and Ferrario. T-Bone did a great job as well. Again, a new Redbird report is available for you guys at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We'll talk to you Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or Listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.